Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is 7 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. Brian Wilson on this 30th day of November. We're just about to wrap up this month and get ready to go into the holiday season in a big way as we move into December. Hope that you're doing well on this day where we have temperatures that are, I think they're appropriate for the season that we're in right now.
That's appropriately mild, I would call it.
I got 59 here.
63.
Wow.
Down.
Yeah, that's pleasant for this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that. Listen, there's a lot of things we're going to be getting in today, but I was struck by this story that I read on WZTV, that's Fox 17's website. And the question is, should pride flags be displayed in your child's classroom? And apparently there is some conversation about this going on in Williamson County right now. And it's an interesting concept, and I would like to explore this with you. So if you have a thought about that, 615-737-9986, hop on the hotline real quick, and let's have a conversation about it. Let me just lay out what this story says. The pride flag has made its way into schools, and that has some parents and community members fired up. Some believe the waving of the flag is a sign of support for the LGBTQ plus community, and is a political statement that does not belong in the public schools. Others say this is freedom of speech issue that should be able to be expressed in any public building. Where a pride flag should be displayed has caused concerns across Middle Tennessee, and now the flag is causing a stir in Williamson County. Concerned citizen William Petty says, hey, if schools allow pride flags to be hung, then what other flags will be allowed? Quote, I think we need to have a policy, says Petty. Because if we're going to allow that flag to fly in the classroom, what flags are we not going to allow? What if somebody wants to put a Hamas flag in there? Would that be okay? What about a swastika? Would that be okay? How about a Confederate battle flag? Would that be okay? What are the limits? Another concerned citizen says, well, the pride flag brings comfort to some students who may not feel accepted because of people who shame the LGBTQ community. Here's what the Williamson County Superintendent had to say about it. Listen to this. Dr. Jason Golden said it's important. He's trying to walk a line here. It's important for teachers to be able to express themselves as long as they're not pushing their personal beliefs on their students. We certainly want to make sure anytime anyone has suggestions that a professional teacher might be talking about their personal opinions, let us know. We will certainly investigate that. Also, we want to make sure that we respect that teachers do have their personal space as well and have some personal items related to that. So that's difficult, but you got to find the professional balance. I'm not sure I can agree with you there on that, Dr. Jason Golden. I'm not sure that the classroom is the appropriate place for this. I mean, I believe in the First Amendment. But, there are limits to the First Amendment in a workplace environment. And it is not inappropriate for a workplace to say, there are certain, things that would not be acceptable in this environment. And that's been approved by the courts time and time again, that you don't have absolute rights that you might have on the outside in your private life in the work environment. And I'm not sure that you can make the case that this should be there. I would really love to know what your thought is, so get on the line, 615-737-9986. This guy named Petty says, we're seeing the pride flags all over the country. We're seeing kindergartners. I'm not saying that's happening here, but we see it in other school districts being asked to decide what sex they are, what gender they are. So far, and I'm surprised by this, no Middle Tennessee school board has voted to ban the flag. So there could be, apparently, some coming legislation in the upcoming session of the Tennessee House of General Assembly where they could be looking at banning the pride flag inside public schools. Is that something that you would support? Would that be a violation of first rights or within the boundaries of what is acceptable in the classroom? 615-737-9986. I think it's an interesting conversation. Look, I'll give you my 2 cents, then I want to hear what you have to say. First Amendment is an important right in America, and we all have the right, I think, in our personal lives to express ourselves and say things, that express what we believe and the positions that we take. I certainly am a big proponent of the First Amendment. How could I be doing what I do for a living and not be that person? But in a classroom, The priority ought to be on number one, educating kids, not making the teachers feel like they have a personal space. Again, focus on the kids, not the teachers. Education ought to be about the kids and what's best for them, and not, the teachers needing to have some kind of social statement that they want to make to the world, whatever that is. And where do you draw the line? What flags would then not be acceptable? If this is acceptable, then what do you say when somebody brings in another flag that you don't find acceptable? I think the only flag that ought to be flying right now in a public school is the American flag. That's where I am right now. I don't care what your personal positions are. I don't care whether you're gay or not. It doesn't bother me if you are, but it's not the place or the time to be having these social discussions. This is about education. Why don't you, when we say sometimes to these entertainers who get all off on one position, why don't you just shut up and sing, right? And I just want to say to teachers, I respect teachers. I think they have a difficult job, and I wouldn't want to try to do what they do on a day-to-day basis. And I do whatever I can to support education. I'm doing some things here in Watertown to do that right now. So I do care about kids and getting a good education. But this is indoctrination, and it's just not the place or the time. And parents should have a say in this. And I think we ought to just have a one flag only rule in Tennessee, and I would be supportive of that. What do you think? David in Hendersonville, you're up on the drive. What do you say, David?
How you doing, Brian?
I'm well.
Thanks for taking my call. Hope you had a happy Thanksgiving.
I did.
I'm right there with you. The only flag needs to be flying in our schools for the American flag. When you go putting them other flags, the teacher is there to teach. She's there to teach.
I can't.
He or she.
Yeah.
They're there to teach what should be taught when you and I were in school. I'm going on 58.
Yeah, I had a government teacher, my favorite government teacher of all, my favorite teacher of all time, a woman by the name of Mrs. Hirsch back in Texas. And she taught government. And, of course, when you talk about government, talking about politics, and things come up in class about what's happening, in the real world. They sometimes leak into the discussions about how government operates. And she said at the beginning of the class, I have a position, but you'll never figure out what it is. Where is that in America today? Where is it? We're here to teach you certain things so you can go out into the world and prepare for, a world where you're going to college or a world where you're going to the workplace. That's our job here, to teach you the basics that you need to know in a good rounded education. We're not here to indoctrinate you. We're not here to have conversations about gender or these kinds of things. Those are things that really, I think, fall into the purview of the parents. It's not really the responsibility of the schools. And so, I say, look, let's keep all of it out of there. Would you want people putting their political bumper stickers up on the bulletin board or things, that would be controversial? No, we want you to come in and teach the curriculum, teach the material. And by the way, we need to keep a good close eye on that as well. Phil, you're up next, calling in from Jackson. Phil, you're on with Brian on the drive.
Hey, Brian, thanks for the call. I'm with you. They're trying to indoctrinate the kids. And the First Amendment right shouldn't be anywhere in this equation because it's all about what's appropriate to be in the classroom. And a pride flag is nothing more than how somebody's sex life goes. I'm heterosexual. Is there a heterosexual flag that can be flown in there? Or if you want to talk about freaky people, what about swingers? Are they going to have swinger flags in the classroom? Sexual preference has nothing to do with a appropriation. What needs to go in a school room?
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that I don't care about what you do in your personal life. There's enough libertarian in me that I want to be left alone to live my life as I see fit. As long as I'm not violating the law or harming somebody else, leave me alone. And that's what I want, from everybody else. But I don't care about your sexual choices. But I do care about you making sure that, we're paying you to go into the classroom and to educate our children. When you start talking about the teacher's rights to have personal space and put up whatever flag, we want to give them a professional opportunity to have some personal. No, the classroom is not their personal space. It's really not. It belongs to the taxpayer, to be honest with you. Edward in Johnson City, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Edward?
Yes, thanks for taking my call, and we love hearing you from Johnson City out of Nashville.
What's your thought?
Totally. I agree with you totally. I think having the U.S. flag in the classroom's fine, even state of Tennessee or the county or the city flag, whatever it might be, and even the school flag. But this other stuff just needs to totally stay out of the classroom. And while we're on the subject of that pride flag, I hate that they've captured the rainbow out of the Bible and put it on their flag. It's just detestable to me. But I do appreciate you taking my call.
Edward, I appreciate you making the call. Thank you very much. Tim in Nashville, let's get your thought in here quickly because our time is running down this segment. What do you think?
Hey, Brian, I'll be quick. The caller prior to the last one hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head. The American flag, the state flag should be the only flags in schools. This is not their personal space. I don't care what anybody does in their personal time. I don't discriminate against anybody.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I'm tired of all of this indoctrination and pushing this on kids. That's all I got to say. Thank you, buddy.
Tim, thank you. And let's go to Tommy last. Tommy, you're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Tommy?
Hey, Brian, I just wanted to say real quick, I think all the other guys kind of covered what should be flown in the classroom, but they're talking about this as expression, right? Well, we're firing teachers who are doing extracurricular things on their own personal time, but they get found out by the school district, and they fire them and let them go. Now, I'm not for, any of this internet sexuality stuff, but there's teachers that are doing it. Isn't that private expression and freedom of speech on their behalf? And yet we're firing them, instead of letting them continue their job. I mean, I don't know. I think there's something to be said there.
Yeah, I think, listen, I think when you leave the classroom and you go into your personal life, let's say the bell rings at 4 o'clock, once you hit the parking lot and you're in your car, you're free to do whatever you want to do within boundaries. I mean, I think if we found that somebody was involved in some kind of real active hate speech, I think it would be time to review that teacher to make sure that's the kind of teacher we want in our classroom. But, but in the classroom, it's the classroom, technically belongs to the taxpayers because we pay for it, number one. So it's not their space. Number two, it's not their place to try to socially, persuade our kids to one position or another about the social issues of the day. It's their job to teach them math. It's their job to teach them how to read. It's their job, to make sure they understand science. And I want that. The rest of the stuff, it doesn't really, honestly, it's not your job and it's not your place to be trying to bring those kinds of conversations into the classroom. It ought to be a neutral place for learning. Really, honestly, I think that's really where it comes down. Neutrality in the classroom. So, look, with all due respect to teachers and people who may have a disagreement with this, I just want to remind you, it's not your space. And number two, it's about the kids. Let's teach the kids. Where did we lose focus on that? 21 past the hour now, 3 o'clock. When you need insurance, I want you to think about King & Associates Insurance in Brentwood. Have been around for about 25 years, an independent agency, and there is a lot to like about that. If you are doing business like one of those internet companies, they're big. They have a few products that they sell you. The bottom line is it may not be the best fit for what you truly need. An independent agency can go out there and shop around and look at different insurance companies, different policies, different approaches to making sure that you are protected with insurance. And then they can pick that one that, fits your actual need. And you may find that you save a lot of money in the process as well. The other thing is, if you've ever done business with some of those other companies, you know how hard it is to get a human being on the line to answer your questions. Well, that won't happen at King & Associates. You just call this number, 615-329-8121, and somebody will get on the phone and talk to you. You will hear a human being on the other end of the line, not a recording, not somebody saying, you know what, your call is important to us, please stand by. They'll find every way they can to make sure you have a great policy that meets your needs at the best price possible. So get your royal review with King & Associates Insurance. Log on to tkinginsurance.com. King Insurance & Associates, royal treatment and great rates.
That ceasefire trying to be extended in the Israel-Hamas conflict over in Gaza. And a first for Nashville. We'll tell you what, 3:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, Mac Murray, it's good to see you over there in the newsroom. And there's Chris Webber over in the control room pushing all the blinky buttons. You guys having a good day?
So far so good.
Yeah, I didn't want to come into work today because it was so nice out there. I know. It's really, when you get a day like this time of year, you just take it and run with it, right? And so it really is a nice, pleasant day. But I think it's supposed to have rain. Is that on the horizon?
Yep.
I think it's
rain on the way.
Yeah. All right. I don't know about you guys, but at my household, a Christmas tradition has started already. It started, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Okay. And and already it's about to drive me guano crazy. It's just, I love the holiday season, and I can't do anything but sing praises of what Cabana Wife does to the home to transform it into a a really beautiful place. I feel like I'm walking around in a Macy's store sometimes. Some of these trees are so spectacular, and some of the decorations are really, really, really beautiful. But always in the background, 24/7.
Oh, I know.
The Hallmark Channel.
Yeah.
I know.
Those Christmas movies. Boy.
I feel like I'm about to overload with syrupy, sweet, holiday romantic comedies, and stories, and there really are only about two storylines that they do. One of it is somebody who has some issue with Christmas is stuck because of bad weather or delayed or something. Some tragedy occurs and they can't get out of town, and they're stuck in this little community that has a wonderful Christmas tradition, and they're a big bah humbug person, but then they overcome it, and then in the process, these ridiculously good people, they find somehow love, but there's a moment where they almost kiss, but they don't kiss, and then there's always a misunderstanding.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and
Of course.
and then these two should be together, and that eventually they're going to get together, but in between there is a complete misunderstanding of each other. But then at the last minute, literally you can count down 2 minutes before the end of the show, they will somehow resolve it, and they will end the show on a kiss. The other one is, you're a nanny or some kind of employee, and you're in a foreign country, you're an American, and you go into, and you're going to become like the nanny to a princess. And you meet some
real
duke,
life stuff,
duke or earl or a future king.
Happens all the time.
And everybody, there's the hilarity ensues for a while because of the clash of cultures, and then eventually though the nanny and the king, they find each other, and they find true love, and they both have tragic backstories, but at the very end, they kiss. After almost kissing once before, then they kiss.
You have to have the almost kiss first.
Yeah.
There has to be the almost kiss. They get
That's right.
interrupted. Something happens.
Now, I mean, honestly, those are that you change the act. Well, there's only about 5 or 6 actors and actresses that work in these movies.
Not many. Yeah.
No, they just rotate.
Mix and match.
And we're supposed to suspend disbelief. Well, hold it. Wasn't that the person that was in the movie before the one we just watched?
No, never mind that.
No. It's a different person now.
Yeah.
And the sad thing about it is I'll sit down and it's on in the background, and somehow I'll get sucked into the thing. And I'm mad at myself because I don't really want to be watching this, but the people are so pretty, and the backdrops are so gorgeous, and the things are shot so beautifully.
They are.
That I can't help but be drawn in.
Like you don't know what's going to happen, but you watch anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, exactly how it's going to end. I mean, there's from the moment, and I mock them sometimes. Those two guys, they're just missing each other. They need to get together. This is sad. I'm mouthing off all the time. Cabana Wife loves them though, and I know a lot of people do. Well, listen to this real quick. Cable network, the Hallmark Channel, reached an average of 1.53 million viewers on cable. Trailing only ESPN on the last week.
Wow.
We're not even really.
Wow.
That's right.
That's impressive.
And Thanksgiving starts, and the Hallmark Channel comes on, and I don't get to reclaim the television until sometime into the new year.
Oh well.
Yeah.
At least you'll be entertained.
But when your main extracurricular activity involves the nursing of a puppy and making sure that it poops and pees and cleaning all that up, it's I guess it's a nice distraction.
Yeah. Get what you can, I guess.
Yeah. It's too sugary. It's too sweet. 31 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock.
.331, I'm Mac Morey with your top story. 61 degrees, sunny, but that could dissipate here as we get further into this afternoon, into the evening. Some showers expected here tonight, and they will sustain tomorrow, possibly into the weekend. A traffic report, complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. As the ceasefire in Gaza holds for a seventh day today to get more hostages freed and aid in, White House officials say they're hoping that the pause in fighting can be extended so that more hostages can be released. Karen Travers.
The White House continues to say that Israel has made it clear that when the pauses in fighting are over, they'll resume their strikes against Hamas with full force. But National Security spokesman John Kirby said the administration is pushing to keep extending the temporary ceasefire.
I know one of the first questions I'm going to get is, what are the chances of an extension? And I just can't tell you that right now, except to tell you that we're working at it literally by the hour to see if we can get this seventh day turned into an eighth and ninth and 10th and beyond.
And a shooting at a bus station in Israel today from Hamas killed 3 people. In the nation's capital, the House debating whether to expel New York Republican Congressman George Santos ahead of an expected vote tomorrow. Stephen Portnoy.
The debate was led by fellow Long Island Republican Anthony D'Esposito.
George Santos is a liar.
Santos stands accused of 23 counts in a federal indictment. The House Ethics Committee says he used campaign cash to pay for Botox treatments and weekend getaways. But as the embattled congressman himself put it in his own defense on the House floor,
I have been convicted of no crimes, Mr. Speaker.
Expulsion requires a 2/3 vote, and several conservatives have spoken on Santos's behalf, saying they don't want to see the House setting a new modern precedent of expulsion before conviction.
And right now in Tennessee, Channel 4 says that Nashville will now have its first black woman chief of corrections officer as Ruby Joyner is set to be sworn in tomorrow morning. Joyner, a 24-year DCSO veteran, will be taking over the largest division of the 1,000-employee agency, and she'll replace Tony Wilkes, who's set to retire after 36 years of service. Joyner has previous experience working for the public defender of Metro Nashville and Davidson County, as well as the Mental Health Cooperative. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
You know, with the cold weather coming, and it's going to be here, and it's going to get colder as the season goes along, you want to make sure your heating unit is working. And if it goes on the fritz, there's one number I would call. You should call it, too. You know the number, 775-7833. It's the number for Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, your official Rude Pro partner. And then, you know, they will buzz over to your house and do whatever they can to get you back up and running as soon as possible. One of the things that you should think about is preventative maintenance, and that is something that can be accomplished through something known as the Beehive Club. To be a Beehive Club member, it's as little as $99 actually, and you get a lot for that. 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges, 24/7, and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner, so for satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling at 615-775-7833 or learn more online at busybeehvac.com.
Today's show happened because I saw a comment. He said, why don't you do something on doves and dove fields and how to find them and things like that. So
yeah.
All right.
Good idea. It's past opening day, but like you said, it can work.
Yeah.
Because the season is long. It runs for 90 days, and there's 3 segments, so we're going to cover all that today. Let's rattle off the season. September 1 through September 28th is the first segment of Dove, and then October 14th through November 5th, and then December 8th through January 15th. 15 is your bag limit. So September 1 is opening day, and that's at noon in Tennessee.
September 1st has been one of those days. I mean, you'll see guys. I mean, they'll take off work. Have big cooking and getting together with friends, and it's kind of neat to see.
Yeah.
Historically, it's a huge social event. I'd say the majority of the hunters probably hunt opening day, opening weekend, and then won't pick up a shotgun until next year. So,
we have 2 other segments besides this one. Running in October, and then even all the way through January 15th. There's a lot of opportunity throughout the year.
On our website, tnwildlife.org, on our homepage, you can click the button there to dove hunting info and fields is what the button's titled. It's got all the information on dove hunting. You can find the fields there. So let's talk about how to find a field. You click on Region 2, it pulls up the options that are available, and get down to Bark Camp Barrens, and you see it's open statewide. So the hunting's not over there. There's still opportunity. Even though we had a big opening day, let it die down a little bit and get back in there. You're going to have some good hunting, I think, there, sounds like, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
"39 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air. You're listening to The Drive. A beautiful day outside. It's as we have 60 degrees here in bucolic Watertown. A little warmer than that in Nashville, Tennessee, Music City. So enjoy this weather, because apparently it's going to turn wet before it gets better again. I think though next week it's looking pretty good. That's what I'm hoping so. I want to spend some time talking about what's going on in Biden Incorporated investigations and in Trump world. Since, this is the way it looks like it's going to be matched up. First of all, you want to hear of something that I just found? Harris X poll just came in today. Trump versus Biden. Trump would win by 4 if the election were held today, according to their survey. The 4-way matchup would actually help Trump more. Trump would win, they say, by 7 points in a 4-way matchup, which is likely what we're going to have. And as far as the securing the nomination, Trump is leading in the Harris X poll by up by 59 points. So, there's nobody going to touch him, it looks like, for a while, the way things are looking right now. And there are other polls out there that sort of mirror this. So this is not one poll being cherry-picked in isolation. The former president of the United States is now, as you know, involved in a case in New York. It's a fraudulent fraud case, in my estimation. The New York Appeals Court has reinstated a gag order preventing former President Donald Trump from maligning court staffers on Thursday. New York Judge Arthur Engoron had initially issued the gag order in early October after Trump lashed out at one of his law clerks on social media. Trump is currently fighting accusations of business fraud leveled by New York Attorney General Letitia James. Letitia James actually campaigned saying that she was going to get Trump. And they have trumped up a bunch of stuff on Trump's businesses that I think is just, it's reprehensible the way the law is being used against the former president. Because what they're basically accusing is that they've said that he has overestimated the value of his product, of his properties, etc., and trying to get loans. And no bank ever complained, and no bank ever lost money. And the thing is that when you come and you're trying to determine what a property value is worth, there are a lot of factors, and one of them is what is the brand Trump worth? If it's a piece of property owned by Brian Wilson, it's probably not worth much. But if it's a piece of property owned by Donald Trump, there's a certain cachet that comes with that, and people are willing to pay for it. So, it's just a ridiculous waste of time and harassment. But now, apparently, Trump is being told, you can't say bad things about the judge, and you can't say bad things about the members of the court staff. And I expect him to immediately do both those things. So, there you go. Turning now to Biden, House GOP is now discussing whether or not they should have a vote to formalize the impeachment inquiry. There's an impeachment inquiry that's going on, and that's basically a determination to find out whether the facts are there to go forward with an actual impeachment. But they never really took a vote on it, and now they're thinking maybe they will do that. There were chairmen that were meeting today, James Comer, Jim Jordan, and the House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith, and they're going to go to the conference of Republicans and make their case as to whether we should have a formal vote and basically give them an update on where the investigation is. It was Kevin McCarthy who directed the House to open an impeachment inquiry, but the White House has dismissed the probe as illegitimate because there was no formal vote on the matter. So why not take a vote on the matter? So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. I told you, we got this story late yesterday, and we got it into the end of our show, but I wanted to make sure those who listened in the early part of the show heard this as well. From the Washington Examiner, bank officials flagged Hunter Biden's Chinese payments as unusual. Bank investigator raised concern internally in 2018 about payments Hunter Biden received from a Chinese company, saying the activity on the account appeared unusual, according to House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer. This was a bank employee and Bank Secrecy Act manager who said it was unusual for a Chinese government-linked company to give $5 million to a joint venture between Hunter Biden and the Chinese businessman. And there were emails that went back and forth through that. And so Comer published some of these emails, redacted in some ways, to conceal the bank's identity, but described a series of wire payments that attracted the suspicion of the bank investigator in 2018. And one of them was, $5 million. Then it went through a bunch of shell corporations. And then $400,000 ended up in the account of James Biden. And then he took $40,000 like the very next day and sent it over to Joe Biden. Remember the email where Hunter Biden is saying, we have to give 10% to the big guy. Chris, if the amount was $400,000, I have to ask Chris to double check my math because it's never very reliable. But I think I know the answer to this question. So, Chris, back me up. If it's $400,000 that went into James Biden's account, and then $40,000 went into Joe Biden's account, what would that be? What percentage of that would that be? What percentage is 40,000 of 400,000?
Get my abacus out. That would
carry the one.
10%, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
exactly right. Are D.C. Democrats finally ready to throw Hunter Biden under the bus? Here's from redstate.com. A funny thing happened on the way to the 2024 presidential election. While Democrat lawmakers have spent virtually all of Joe Biden's miserable presidency vociferously defending the president's wayward son from a myriad of scandals, now at least one close friend of Hunter Biden believes that numerous Democrats in Congress are betting on the political expediency of sacrificing Hunter, throwing Hunter under the bus. Think about it. Why wouldn't they at this point? Joe is upside down in every polling issue that matters. The House impeachment inquiry into the Biden business is already bearing fruit, with Speaker Mike Johnson on Wednesday providing an update saying that the inquiry has already shown the corrupt conduct of the president's family and that he and the White House officials have repeatedly lied about his knowledge and involvement in the family's business activities. Two Democrats on Capitol Hill told Politico the politics regarding Hunter are fixed, and that his new nonsensical strategy of attempting to dictate to Congress the terms under which he will testify about his foreign business dealings would be all risk and no reward, one of his friends said. So, are they going to throw Hunter under the bus in order to save Joe Biden? Well, and there's a big fight going on. You know, Hunter says, I'll come and I'll appear before an open hearing, but I'm not going to come for a closed door deposition, which is what is required of everybody who appeared. Now, what Comer is saying is, yeah, we'll give you your open hearing, and you can have your little dog and pony show. But we have, in a situation like that, maybe you get 30 questions in. Republicans will ask questions. The Democrats will try to diffuse and turn it into a big dog and pony show. But you may get 30 questions answered, or you may not get those 30 answers, because time is limited for a line of questioning, and you can filibuster. But if you get it in behind closed doors in a deposition where there's no time limit, and it's lawyers asking specific questions about certain transactions, and you need to get hundreds and hundreds of questions answered to draw anything from what that witness knows, then you have the ability to further your investigation. What Hunter Biden wants to do is turn it into a sideshow, a circus. And what the Republicans want is, well, we want answers. And according to Jonathan Turley, it's going to happen. The question is, when will it happen? Because if he refuses to show up for the behind closed door deposition, then he'll be found in contempt of Congress. And it will take a while for that to process its way through the courts, and they'll drag their feet out. And the question is, how long would it take them to do that? The answer is, it will take them a while. This whole Hunter Biden thing is going to be interesting. But I think I initially thought they were asking for him to appear a little too soon. That they needed probably a little more time to process the information that's coming in by subpoena, the bank records, the flow of money, etc. But I now understand that since it's probably going to end up in courts, you might as well start that process early and see if you can get an expedited consideration of it all. And it may be that this is a matter that goes all the way to the highest court in the land. I wouldn't be surprised. 50 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
An update on the ceasefire in Gaza, drugs in Tennessee, a dog virus making its way to the south, and 2 state troopers dead after being hit by a vehicle. We'll explain at 4 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 56 minutes now past the hour. Let's take a look at the markets. I mean, wow, look what happened on the Dow today, up at 1.5%, 520 points in the green, hovering just below 36,000. It's a new 2023 high for the Dow. S&P up only 17 points. The NASDAQ is in the red, down 32 points. But it turned out to be a pretty good month for stocks. John Maxon is standing by over at Beacon Capital Management with more on that. Hi, John.
Hey, Brian, that's right. Yeah, good day on the Dow and a great month for stocks across the board. Really strong November. And really what was boosting the market is the belief that the market has that the Federal Reserve is done raising interest rates, which would be a good thing for the economy. Signs that inflation is continuing to decrease are, continuing to pile up, including the Fed's favorite inflation gauge, which the PCE index came out today in line with expectations. That's continued to go down year over year, up about 3.5%, 0.2% for the month. So that was really good. Watch really closely tomorrow. The market's going to be watching Jerome Powell actually speak for continued clues, but a great day and a great month.
All right. Thank you very much, John Maxon. And learn more about all the things they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. 57 minutes now, past the hour of 3 o'clock. Eurofix has a very different business philosophy. They staff all their locations with more than they need, more than the average auto repair shop, just so they can be ready when your emergency pops up out of nowhere. Have you ever noticed how hard it can be to get a right now appointment for vehicle repair? Some dealers, you can wait 2 more weeks just to get an appointment, but not at Eurofix. Eurofix has been offering quality repairs that beat the dealer without dealer pricing since 1999, plus a 3-year nationwide warranty and the staff to fix your car now. If you're tired of waiting forever to get your car into the shop, then call Eurofix. Owner Aaron Stokes says we will never be too busy for our customers. We are here to take their pain away now. Eurofix repairs all European cars, and Eurofix says yes to speedy repairs when others can't or just won't. Family owned for 24 years. Call 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myeurofix.com.
Four o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 61 degrees in Nashville right now. Getting ready for some showers coming our way. Traffic and a complete weather forecast will tell you all about it 5 minutes. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken held a solo press event in Tel Aviv this afternoon following a day of meetings with Israeli and Palestinian officials praising the ongoing ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas, which is now stretched into a 7th day and is expected to release another 10 more Israeli hostages.
The 7th day that hostages have been freed and are returning home to their families. The 7th day that significantly more humanitarian assistance is getting into the people of Gaza who need it. And the 7th day that civilians in Gaza have been able to move to safer areas.
And there was an attack at an Israel bus station today from Hamas, killing 3 people. Crime in the Volunteer State Metro Police found more than 100 pounds of marijuana at a home in Antioch, concluding in this man's arrest. Officials conducted a search warrant after they saw John Edward Minter loading up bags of marijuana into his truck. 119 pounds of the drug were found, along with psilocybin mushroom gummies. He's facing felony drug charges. Right now in Tennessee, a veterinarian in Kingsport believes the mysterious respiratory illness affecting dogs in other states has made its way to Tennessee. Andy Cherry of Cherry Point Animal Hospital tells Channel 11 in Johnson City dogs coming in with symptoms are not testing positive for any known illnesses, and the illness has been prominent in dogs coming from boarding facilities, pet daycares, and dog parks.
If you can not board your animal, stay away from dog parks, decrease the frequency of grooming and daycare at this point would be the most important thing.
And Cherry Point board animals say they and other facilities are working to keep them clean. In Nevada, 2 state troopers there are dead after they were hit while helping a driver on the side of the highway early this morning in Las Vegas. Alex Stone.
The 2 state troopers were checking on a driver who appeared to be asleep along the side of Interstate 15 when a white Chevy SUV slammed into the troopers, killing them. Then the Chevy took off. Las Vegas Under Sheriff Andrew Walsh says the SUV was tracked down and an arrest was made.
We mobilized all of the investigative resources at the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department to find the person responsible for this tragedy.
Las Vegas police say there is no indication the troopers were targeted, and they're investigating if the driver was drunk or high.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Say, what do you say we kick off hour number 2 of The Drive here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN? Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air for, well, about 3 more hours. We'll be with you, and we'll give you some news and information you can use as we try to decipher what's going on in the world around us and try to bring you some thoughtful commentary along the way and maybe a chuckle. I'm getting blowback about my comments regarding the Hallmark Channel.
Uh-oh.
I mean, well, people are it is a passionate divide. I don't think that there are people who are neutral about the Hallmark Channel. I think they're either those that love it and those who it's just not their thing on any level. I wouldn't say hate. That's a strong word, but they dislike it.
Yeah,
they're just, it's not their thing.
Mm-hmm.
But those people who love it really love it. And, I always, I'm always sort of, when I get sucked into one of these stories, I always feel like there's a huge misunderstanding here. They don't understand each other. These two kids need to be together, and yet they can't find one another. They're like star-crossed lovers.
Whatever shall they do?
And time is running out. Will they ever be able to resolve this complete misunderstanding and actually have a real kiss before the end of the show? And remarkably, it always happens that there is one.
Speaking of interesting, this headline in the news today, Hallmark researchers say they are close to developing a second movie plot. We can all hope for that.
Wow. And maybe some new actors and actresses.
Yeah. All those tax dollars hard at work there.
Yeah, sure. There we go. Their research department is they got their best people on it. All right. Well, let's talk about 2024 because things are happening. We are, I think 46 days until the Iowa caucuses, I believe is the correct number. And we are only 25 shopping days till Christmas. How about that? All right, Biden campaign silent as Trump world openly lobs debate challenge. That's right. Former President Donald Trump seems more than eager to debate President Joe Biden. And the sitting president's re-election campaign seems to be silent on its plans to put the 81-year-old Biden on the general election debate stage. He's not going. He's not going to do it. I will say he's been out there a lot more than I thought he was going to be out there. Everybody thought he would just, he would run his campaign largely from the home in Delaware, and I think there will be a fair bit of that this summer when they get into a full campaign mode in this, throughout the year. But are they going to put him on the stage with Trump? No. I just can't imagine that. First of all, there would be that awkward moment where he wouldn't know how to get off the stage, because that every time he goes on a stage, he gets lost. It's so sad to watch this guy and to understand that this is our president, ladies and gentlemen. This is our president. Less than a year out from the presidential election, the Nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates announced the 3 dates for next year's forums. Though Trump previously said in June he would debate Biden, questions about whether he would attend the general election debates have seemingly risen as the former president continues to skip the Republican presidential primary. Why would you want to go to a Republican debate if you're Trump? Did I tell you that in the general, he's 59 points ahead of his other Republican wannabe presidential nominee candidates? So if you're 59 points ahead, you don't have to show up for the debate. And it'd be stupid for you. There's no percentage in showing up for those debates. But he's very anxious to get on the stage with Joe Biden. President Trump looks forward to debating Crooked Joe next fall, the aide told the Daily Caller. The real question is whether or not Joe will debate President Trump. Specific to the Presidential Debate Commission, the campaign has not yet accepted the suggested terms made recently. Yeah, look, I don't know. I'm beginning to wonder if the Presidential Debate Commission has outlived its usefulness. Who are they, and who gives them the authority to set up these debates? It's always been done because that's the way we've always done it, but I'm not sure it's the best way to do it. For Joe Biden, he's got a Muslim problem. This is from townhall.com. It should cause people to realize how insane the base has become. It goes, well, let me start again. I'm not feeling sorry for anyone in the Democrat Party regarding this simmering election, writes Mike Vespa on townhall.com. Still, it should cause some people to realize how insane the base has become. It goes beyond the woke lexicon that's often dismissed, and rightfully so by most. The people are so pro-terrorist, and there's a discussion of how to cater to these people, including possibly placing conditions on new military aid to Israel, which is currently eradicating Hamas's influence in the Gaza Strip. The problem is that Democrats cannot ignore these people. Too many key countries along the Rust Belt in states that Joe Biden must win next year. Specifically, I've mentioned this before, these two states, Michigan and Minnesota. Biden's support for Israel is creating a Muslim problem for Democrats whose anti-Israel and anti-Semitic advocacy is enhanced by the legions of white progressives who only see this as another exercise in intersectionality proselytizing. These Muslims are not voting for Donald Trump, but many are threatening to sit out next year. I've seen tweets by sort of Arab Americans. Well, here's one, Mehdi Hassan. Let me start with Shadi Hamid. Since I've been back home for Thanksgiving break, we've had in-depth conversations with 4 Arab relatives and family friends. All 4 have said they won't vote for Biden in 2024. They insist they will abstain, even if it ends up benefiting Trump. Mehdi Hassan responds to that, saying, I've had the same conversations with my Muslim friends and family members over Thanksgiving. Not a single one says they will vote for Biden again, having voted for him in 2020. Every single one says it's because of Gaza. Dems need to understand that the anger is very real. Yeah, I mean, Joe Biden is he's irritating both sides. He doesn't seem to be fully supportive of Israel, and but any support of Israel is seen by Muslim voters as being something that they can't abide by. And so you have a state like Minnesota and you have a state like Michigan, where apparently the polls are pretty tight. In fact, some polls show that Trump is already leading in Michigan, and you lose the sizable vote of Muslim or Arab voters that live in those states, then Biden is going to be in real trouble. I mean, wouldn't it be something if his support for Israel was the thing that caused him to lose the electoral votes in all-important Michigan? Because I'm telling you, it looks like there are a lot of people in Michigan. It has a very high Arab American population. They're not going to vote for Joe Biden after what has happened here. That's interesting. I think that is another problem that the Democrats have, on top of the fact that Joe Biden, of course, is apparently brain dead, wanders around aimlessly on the stage, can't read a teleprompter, can't barely stay on his feet. And here's for the Washington Examiner: Democrats losing Biden backup plan as primary deadlines pass. Democrats are stuck between a rock and a hard place when it comes to President Joe Biden, as growing concerns over his age and polling numbers are still regarded as insufficient to warrant a Plan B for the 2024 election. Biden is facing a primary challenge from Dean Phillips, Democrat of Minnesota, which many strategists and Democrat lawmakers regard as a long-shot campaign or even a mistake. If other candidates wish to enter the race, setting up a presidential campaign, raising funds necessary to run would typically take months. Primary ballot deadlines in several states such as South Carolina, Georgia, and Nevada have already passed in the last few months, placing any future Democrat candidate at a disadvantage. Deadlines in other states such as California, Illinois, and Michigan are approaching in the coming weeks. Democrats could decide to pick another nominee during the Democrat National Convention in Chicago in August of 2024, but that nominee may not have the same chances of success as Biden. So what is the Plan B? Well, there is no Plan B. Not that we've seen yet. If he were suddenly not to run, everyone would run. The VP scares no one, said one senior Democrat in an interview with Reuters. Harris, who's insisted that Biden is fit to run for re-election and will win next November, faces her own popularity problems that could make her an insufficient candidate to run against the Republican former president. Recent polls have shown Harris hovering in the range of 39% approval rating, 1 point lower than Biden's record low approval rating. She was actually doing an interview, and she talked about this the other day. And I have that right here, as a matter of fact.
You've seen the polls also. Your ratings, 38.5%, Biden's 40.4%, and Trump is higher. Ron Klain says this: and you've seen press about yourself over the years. He says that he believes that your popularity or unpopularity or whatever rating you want to put it as is a function of sexism and racism. He says that's part of the problem. He says she doesn't get the credit for all that she's done. Do you think that's true?
Well, are we talking about the media or people? As it relates to the media, I'm sure some of that is true.
It is not. It is not racism. It is not sexism. Honestly, just where do you get that? It is that you are looked at as completely, incompetent, and at times you come across like a blithering idiot. That's the bottom line. She just doesn't seem to inspire confidence. That has nothing to do with sex, her gender. It has nothing to do with anything to do about the color of her skin. It's just that she comes across a little dense. And Biden, can't find his way off the stage. But I think the most likely scenario now, really, honestly, this article is correct on one thing. It's getting late in the process. If you're going to make, the deadlines that need to be made, it's already a little too late for that. It's going to have to be the old convention switcheroo, which, by the way, is still controlled by power brokers. Democrats, give certain people within the party a great deal of power, the so-called superdelegates, etc. And they've made some changes in that over the years, but it's still possible. Democrats don't want to give the people too much power. Funny for Democrats, isn't it? So they want to make sure that the people who are, the power brokers, the real movers and shakers, still, control the process. And so, if we get down to the convention and his numbers have continued to tank, maybe he's done another face plant, on a stage somewhere. Maybe there's a moment on the world stage, which could happen virtually any day, where it becomes so glaringly obvious that this man is in a fog and is not up to the task of being the president of the United States. And it really starts his numbers to even collapse even further. Then I think somebody within the party will pull the strings and they'll find another option. And by the way, Kamala was also asked, could you tell America if you really...
Let me ask you in a more complicated way.
Could you really tell America if it turned out that you looked at Joe Biden and decided he wasn't competent? Could you tell America that was the case?
Let me ask you in a more complicated way. I think there's a lot of people would say, she can't say anything else. She couldn't tell if there was a problem.
I'm not lying.
If there
I'm telling you a fact.
But if there ever is a problem,
yeah.
Do you think that you could go tell the American public? Do you think in your role that you're in a position to do that?
Of course, if necessary, but there's no need for that. There is a political argument that is being made that is not based on substance. And you're asking me to hypothesize around what are my duties to the American people as Vice President of the United States that are based on ethics and morals and the law. I will always follow those rules. But I am suggesting to you that it is important we not be seduced into one of the only arguments that side of the aisle has right now on this issue in a way that is intended to distract from the accomplishments.
Well, she says it's not a problem. Is she looking at the same guy that I'm looking at? Because I look at him and I think there's a problem. I think most Americans look at Joe Biden and they realize, oh, man, he's 81 years old and he's going to run for re-election. And, what's he going to be like at 85? What's he going to be like at 86 at the end of his term? They're looking at this guy and they just like, I don't know. This is not going to end well. And I think she is, she's either just spouting the company line, or she is completely delusional. And neither one of those is a good option. Quickly mentioning, as long as we're talking about 2024, tonight on Fox, DeSantis versus Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, versus the governor of Florida. It's a debate that'll be fun to watch. We get a little popcorn and see how they go at each other, but it really doesn't matter because neither of these guys at this moment look like they're going to be in the running for the nomination. I mean, Gavin Newsom might be pulled out at the convention, but Ron DeSantis has got a big hill to climb with Trump leading him by 59 points. How's that going to happen? 22 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. At Genesis Diamonds, they are rolling back prices and finance rates so you can get headliner gifts for this Christmas. Maybe it's that pair of diamond earrings or that new designer fashion bracelet or that dazzling 2-carat diamond ring. It's all more affordable because at Genesis, they've got special pricing across the board and zero interest financing for 5 years. So you can get that $3,000 diamond pendant and pay just $50 a month, or that $6,000 eternity band for just $100 a month. Everything's included in this amazing holiday offer. All GIA certified natural diamonds and all lab-grown diamonds, even our luxury pre-owned Rolex watches. Imagine that $15,000 Rolex for just $250 a month. You can even finance the sales tax. So don't let this talk of rising prices and high interest rates dampen your holiday spirit. At Genesis, they are lowering prices and taking interest rates down to zero. I said zero. Get that amazing gift they deserve and make your money go further than ever. Merry Christmas from Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs on approved credit.
More hostages released today by Hamas, prisoners from Israelis, and Dr. Fauci to testify over the COVID response again. And we'll also have today's money news, those stories, 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 27 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and I note with interest the passing of Henry Kissinger, a statesman who indelibly shaped U.S. foreign policy, dead at the age of 100. A tough old boot he was. A German-born American diplomat who helped shape U.S. foreign policy in the second half of the 20th century, won a Nobel Prize for brokering an end to the Vietnam War. His death confirmed by a statement from his consulting firm at the age of 100. Hailed as a brilliant strategic thinker, a Harvard-educated political scientist who wielded power with pragmatic conservatism, writes the USA Today. He had the most strategic mind of anyone I ever came across, said Brent Scowcroft, who served as Kissinger's deputy from 73 to 75, and then went on to become National Security Advisor to Gerald Ford and George W. Bush. Kissinger became a National Security Advisor when Nixon took office in 69 and 73. He became Secretary of State after overshadowing William Rogers, Nixon's first Secretary of State, by taking the lead on important foreign policy issues. Kissinger continued in the cabinet post under former President Gerald Ford after Nixon resigned over the Watergate scandal. Born Heinz Alfred Kissinger, May 27th, 1923. He was the first son of an Orthodox Jewish school teacher, and he was had to deal with Nazism on the rise in Germany at the time. He ended up going to Harvard when he immigrated to America, and drew notice in academic circles with his student dissertation. He was a very by all people who I did not know him. I don't recall ever meeting him, but by all accounts said to be a charming guy, a guy who thought very strategically, a guy who could see around corners and could was a valued voice in many, even when he wasn't serving in an official capacity. He was a valued voice for many Republican presidents over the years. He was also, just to put a fine point on it, a ladies' man. He dated starlets, and let's see. He came in 72. He came out number one in a Playboy Club Bunnies poll of people that the Playboy Bunnies would like to have dinner with. And he's seen in pictures with Jill St. John, a starlet of the time, Diane Sawyer, a great number of people. Married Nancy Kissinger, married a woman who became Nancy Kissinger. And now one of the things that reporters sort of joke about with regard to Kissinger was he liked to talk on what we call on background. He would tell you things, but he didn't want his name associated with it. So it always had to be something like a source familiar with the negotiations, perhaps, that were going on. That's sort of the term of art that would be used, and we'd never say it. But reporters really don't like that. They really sort of chafe under the fact that people speak on background and don't allow their names to be attached to the things that they're saying. So there was one reporter just got fed up with it. Kissinger had come back from some major negotiation, and he met with reporters on the tarmac before he was about to get in the car where his wife was waiting. And he gave them some information, but said it's on background, boys. And so the story that got written the next day was, sources tell us blah, 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 blah. The source was seen getting into a limousine with Mrs. Henry Kissinger. That's the way they got around it. But he was truly a brilliant mind, and a man who advised many presidents over a great number of years. 31 minutes now past the hour, 4 o'clock.
.431, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 59 degrees in Nashville, and those clouds starting to come, and precipitation will as well. We'll tell you about it. Full weather forecast, latest traffic report on the way. 5 minutes 8 Israeli hostages have now been released by Hamas today. And for their part, Israel released from prison 30 Palestinian women and minors. The extended temporary ceasefire seems to be working, says Mick Milroy.
The fact that this is working, as difficult as it is an indicator that this might be the mechanism that when both sides are ready to stop the fighting, which obviously is primarily Israel, that this could be used to have a permanent ceasefire.
And there was an attack on an Israel bus station today from Hamas, killed 3 people. Dr. Anthony Fauci will testify about the COVID response again, the House Oversight Committee announcing this morning. It'll be behind closed doors on January 8th and 9th, and then publicly at a later date, not yet determined. Now over to the money news, Daria Albinger.
Stocks closed mostly higher, ending November with some big gains. The Dow soared 520 points, up 35,951. The S&P rose 17, while the Nasdaq fell 32 points. It was the Dow's best month in over a year. Dell reported its latest earnings after the close, a number short of analyst expectations, while beauty megastore Ulta reported better than expected numbers. Consumer prices were unchanged from September to October, down from the 0.4% rise in the previous report. Sales are up 3% year over year, down from 3.4% in September, the lowest year over year inflation rate in more than 2.5 years. The Labor Department says slightly more Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week, but the overall number of people collecting is the highest in 2 years. The report shows while the labor market remains strong, it is beginning to show some signs of softening.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Listen, Dr. Kevin Mitchell and the Wellness Institute of Nashville, they want to tell you that, man, today is the last day, really, honestly, that you can take advantage of their 2023 special for November. I mean, they wanted to do something extra to sort of end the season of Thanksgiving in a good way. So they're offering 2 patient appointments for $23. I mean, let's just talk about that for a moment. You'll get 2 exams, 2 x-rays, 2 treatments, your first treatment for you and your spouse, you and your friend, you and a family member. It doesn't matter who you pick as long as you make your appointments booked together, but it's got to be done, like in the next hour or so. So listen, why don't you take advantage of this? Appointments must be booked together, but that's not a big deal. And it is a big deal in the money that you'll save. If you and someone in your life has any tingling, numbness, weakness, back pain, disc bulging, disc herniation, spinal stenosis, if you're losing quality of life and not able to do things that you once could do because of your back pain or your knee pain, take advantage of Wellness Institute of Nashville's 2 patient exam x-rays treatments for $23. But you really got to pick up the phone and call really in this last hour. 615-246-5009. Pick it up the phone and take advantage of it now. Save yourself a ton of money and start feeling better. Learn more by going to their website, painisbad.com.
Awaken 180 is my solution for weight loss.
Laughing, learning, friendships.
Not the words normally associated with trying to lose weight. But with Awaken 180, you're not trying. Weekly weight loss while gaining the tools to keep it off. Free support for life, friends for life. Learn how over 17,000 clients succeeded with the solution for weight loss.
Awaken 180!
.39 now past the hour, 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air, bringing you news and information on this Thursday, November 30th. Beautiful day. It's still, we're hovering around just below 60 degrees here and abundant sunshine today. So, this is a good day to get a lot of your Christmas decorations going. By the way, I hope we have a day like that on December 7th. Just saying. We're having a Super Talk Live event Thursday, December 7th from 4 to 8 p.m. at Scoreboard at Cedar Creek Marina. We'll be talking about the year that we're beginning to wrap up and talk about the year that is ahead with all the politics. Join Dan, Chris, Matt, and me as we broadcast live. And here's the thing. A lot of people will come to us and they'll say, hey, Brian, I can't find any ticket information. And, I need to know how much this is. Well, it's absolutely free, and there are no tickets. You just, if you want details, just go to 997WTN.com, but it's free.
Consider it a little Christmas gift.
Yeah.
From us to you.
That's right. And, we hope that you'll show up in a big way out there. I remember, I guess it was shortly after I came to Nashville. I was doing the mornings. And we did an event in Mount Juliet, and it was, I think, one of the first time I had gone to a station event. And it was a tremendous, we packed the place. We packed the place, and there was barely parking out of the parking lot, and it was a great thing. We haven't been, I don't think we've been back to Mount Juliet since. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of my Mount Juliet friends there, and we'll all be there. The way this is going to work is I'll be doing the show I'll start the show here in bucolic Watertown. And then somewhere in the 4 o'clock hour, the guys will take over while I make the drive. And then I'll be there for the rest of the broadcast as soon as I can get over there. That runs all the way till 8 p.m. An extra added bonus hour. We're here on the drive. And it'll be a good time had by all. Again, it's free. There are no tickets, but you can get details at 997WTN.com. Did you hear this story? Joni Ernst, senator from Iowa. She's holding a little luncheon for some of her colleagues, and they're providing, examples of the great agricultural products, I guess, of Iowa, because they were serving ribeyes and pork chops. Man, that sounds good, doesn't it? Probably some corn on the cob as well. Because they do corn, they do cows, and they do pigs in Iowa. There's a lot of all those things. And so she's serving this little luncheon. Everybody's having a good time. And then apparently Senator Joni Ernst choked on a piece of food. I mean, it was bad. It was scary. And according to senators who were there, Senator Rand Paul stepped up and gave the Heimlich maneuver. And it's like that piece of whatever it was, that pork chop came right out. And she's okay, she's fine, but it's a good thing that Dr. Rand Paul was there, according to some of the senators who were in attendance. Paul previously worked as an ophthalmologist before going to the Senate in 2010. He still practices medicine pro bono for patients across the state of Kentucky in his free time. And it's important to him that he does that. But he knew what to do. I mean, I didn't know that an eye doctor had those kind of skills, but apparently he's well-versed in how to do the Heimlich maneuver and potentially save the life of Joni Ernst. Those pork chops will get you. She did not, the people asked her for a comment. She didn't say anything, but one of the reporters wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter, "Whoa, Rand Paul used the Heimlich maneuver on Joni Ernst at a Senate lunch today. She was choking on some food per attendee. She's okay." And she responded to that, "Can't help but choke on the woke policies Democrats are forcing down our throats. Thanks, Dr. Rand Paul." That's great. That's fantastic. Having a sense of humor. That's the great thing. If you get there quick, once that blockage is cleared, you're fine. You're kind of like, oh, thank you. That's so much better. Have you ever had that happen?
Luckily, no.
I'm surprised it hasn't happened to me because one of the bad things about being a reporter, and it's a horrible habit, really, honestly, is that I eat quickly. When I was a young reporter, you ate quickly because you were on deadline and you didn't have a lot of time. And when I was on the White House beat, we had a saying that said, "Eat early, eat often," because if you don't, there was always food being presented to you when you're on the White House pool traveling with the White House unit. There was always food around everywhere you go. I mean, you would get to the airplane, charter jet. If you weren't on Air Force One, would provide food when you flew there, but when you were on the press charter, they would feed you breakfast, and then you would arrive, at the location, and the first place you'd go with a workspace, there'd be a spread of food, and then you'd go, and there'd be a second stop in the day, and there'd be a spread of food, and then and then when you get back on the plane, they'll feed you again, and then then they're at the end of the day when all your responsibilities were done, they might offer you an alcoholic beverage, and then they might give you. I mean, I loved it. In the summertime, you'd get on the plane, they'd hand you like a Dove bar. Yeah,
nice.
I'm all about that. So, I mean, you ate and you ate and you ate and you ate. And as a result of that, when I was on the White House unit, I gained a lot of weight because I never, that looks pretty good. I know I just ate an hour ago, but you don't know what's going to happen this afternoon. I better eat again. So food is always there. And it's surprising, the way we wolf this stuff down to get back on the story and get your job done. And it has been one of those bad habits that sort of becomes a part of your life. Even today, I mean, I eat way too fast. And it's amazing. I have never had that happen. I've always wanted to be I know how to do the Heimlich. I mean, you know how to do that, right?
In theory, yes, but in practice, I don't know if I could do it.
Let's say you wrap your arms around the person, you make a fist with your right hand, you put your other hand over it, you come up underneath their rib cage, and then just pull up quick in rapid movements, and the other person, it sort of forces the air. And what they do say is, and you can slap them on the back too. That's the first thing you do. Slap them a couple times on the back, pretty hard. I mean, firmly. I mean, don't leave a mark, but I mean, slap them pretty good. So maybe you can dislodge that way. Then do the Heimlich thing and like that. But they say if the person is able to talk, leave them alone.
Yeah, because then they're not really choking.
They're not really choking. They may be struggling with something, as I say. Now, this does happen to me. Went down the wrong pipe.
Oh, yeah.
How many times my dad said, "Well, that went down the wrong pipe."
I know this from being a lifeguard, but they now call it the abdominal thrust.
The abdominal thrust.
Yes, yes. I don't know
Were
how
you a
they changed
lifeguard?
that.
I thought that was something else. Never mind.
Let's hold on that. That's not that kind of show.
Probably for like 2 years in high school.
Really?
I loved it. Yeah,
Nice.
Great.
You
Taught
did
swim
the Red
lessons,
Cross badge and the whole 9 yards?
Oh yeah, I loved it.
So was
great.
I. I mean, I never actually worked as a lifeguard, but I took the Red Cross test and passed it when I was 12 of all.
Whoa.
I was way too young to be doing it, but I was a pretty strong swimmer, and they thought, yeah, he could probably handle this class. So
Yeah.
they put me in the Red Cross class, and I got my badge.
Wow. You
At
still got
12.
it?
No.
No.
That'd be pretty cool.
Just thought you might. But I don't think that many people would really want you to administer the Heimlich on them, Brian. I mean, you're a large individual.
Well, I'd administer the heck out of it. That's what I would.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm not going to let that piece of. I'm not letting somebody die on my watch. That's for sure.
Might be worse off after than you were before.
My ribs will all be cracked, but I won't choke.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, sometimes they say the treatment is worse than the cure.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah. Well, anyway, but you ask a great question though. Do I still have the badge? I've always found this. It's a great question I ask people. We're getting way off topic, but what's the oldest thing that you have? What's your oldest belonging?
Mm.
I've thought about this, and I think I know what it is. But if you had to say, what's the oldest thing something that you've held on to since you were a kid?
That's something that I just got back within the last couple of years. My mom had it, found it in a box somewhere in storage, and gave it to me. It's a homemade. You remember Cabbage Patch dolls? They were a big thing back in the 80s. My grandmother made me a homemade Cabbage Patch doll, and I actually have it now. It sits in the corner in my bedroom.
That's sweet.
It's got his little overalls on and everything.
Oh, that's cute.
That's probably the oldest thing I have.
Mac?
Yeah, I think probably like my mom has like my blanket as a kid, but that was like, only 10 years ago, so it's not that old. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, probably my blanket. Yeah.
I have a trophy that I won in the 7th grade science fair.
Nice.
I think that's the oldest thing that I have. I mean, if there's something else out there, maybe it's a Christmas ornament or something like that. But I mean,
I do have. I do have like the baby's first Christmas ornament. That was mine. So yeah, I do have that.
Yeah. But those are things that your mom saved for you.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't really count. I mean, I'm just curious, what is the thing that you held on to?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I didn't really save much.
Somewhere from about the time I was 8 or 9, there's a baseball glove, and I haven't seen it in a while, but I know I have it somewhere.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I have a lot of things. I just don't know where they are.
Yeah, that happens over the time.
Yeah. Well, we completely just got nothing accomplished except just going down memory lane and talking about the Heimlich maneuver for 10 minutes. It's 50 minutes now past the hour, 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
The ceasefire in Gaza goes on while that war has its own effects right here in the state. We take a look at some of those. Sex crimes in Tennessee and an investigation, an important one in Hawaii. Those stories more coming up. 5 o'clock, Super Talk, 1097 WTN.
It's 56 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson. They unveiled a new lectern today at the White House, in the White House briefing room, which, sits on top of a swimming pool. Nixon swimming pool is underneath the White House briefing room. And they've had that beast of a thing that they I forget what they call it. They have a name for it, that the big blue lectern, and it's heavy. And when the president travels with his big blue platform, it actually has, heavy steel plates in it. Because that's, if something happens, that the president ducks down behind the podium, and he's got some protection there. But this new one in the White House briefing room is more slender. It's a blend of modernity and tradition. And she said it is named after two former White House correspondents, Alice Dunnigan and Ethel Payne, the two first black women to serve in the White House press corps. And then immediately after John Kirby spoke for a little bit, the activities in the press briefing room came to a complete chaotic halt, and she stomped out because there was a reporter trying to ask a question and she didn't want to call on him. Same guy that's caused problems before, but one way or the other. New podium, same old problems in the White House briefing room. 57, make it 58 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. How are you faring in this rough and tumble market? Well, it wasn't so bad today, but it goes up and down. You never know. The experts at Beacon Capital Management say it could be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management can come up with a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. Maybe it's a small thing. Maybe you need to look at the whole thing and revamp your plan. Wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide that reassurance, and it starts with a phone call to this number, 615-488-9303. If you didn't get that, I'll say it again toward the end, so get something to write it with. The experts at Beacon will take it from there. Then you have nothing to lose except for all the worry that you have about whether or not you've made the right choices, that you're headed in the right direction. Get started today by calling 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away, and you can learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
Five o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Currently 58 degrees in Nashville. Showers expected tonight and the next couple of days. We'll tell you about it. Full weather forecast. Traffic report on the way. 5 minutes. Starting with some breaking news right here in Tennessee. This comes from News 2. The Tennessee Court of Appeals has ruled in favor of Covenant School parents in a lawsuit to block the release of documents related to the March 27th shooting, or better known as the Manifesto. We'll keep you updated with that story right here on Super Talk 1097 WTN. over in the Israel-Hamas conflict as the ceasefire in Gaza holds for a 7th day today to get more hostages out of Gaza and aid in. White House officials say they're hoping that the pause in fighting can be extended, but the administration also condemning a shooting at a bus station in Jerusalem claimed by Hamas. Karen Travers.
The White House says the shooting at a bus station in Jerusalem Thursday, which left at least 3 people dead, is another example of the threat the Israeli people are facing from Hamas. Hamas claimed responsibility for the attack. National Security spokesman John Kirby.
I mean, if anybody's guessing and wondering whether Hamas still has murderous intentions against the Israeli people, just look at what happened in Jerusalem today.
Kirby said the shooting did not technically violate the ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Israel because the attack happened in Jerusalem, and he said the pause in fighting is more specific to Gaza.
And 8 more hostages released today by Hamas. And from Israel, they released 30 Palestinian prisoners, all women and minors. Here in the States, billboards about that Israel-Hamas war have gone up around Nashville and other major cities.
News 2 says the national nonprofit Jubilong put up the eye-catching messages that read, "Let's be clear, Hamas is your problem too." The group says it's in response to what it claims is a 400% increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes. Jubilong's co-founder says they see Hamas as the terrorists for both Israelis and Palestinians, and that anti-Semitism feeds into Hamas and their goals. The billboards will stay in place through the month of December. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Some crime in Tennessee. 30-year-old Eddie Dwight Pease has been arrested after being accused of being involved in sexual conversations with minors on different messaging apps. TBI found that Pease did this on Snapchat and on TikTok. He's been charged with soliciting sexual exploitation of a minor and was booked into the Warren County Jail on a $50,000 bond. That investigation remains active. Federal investigators in Hawaii looking into an incident at Maui's main airport this morning. Alex Stone with some details.
An ambulance and fire engine surrounded a Hawaiian Airlines Boeing 717. The FAA says a plane hit an airport vehicle while it was pushing back from a gate. Local reports say an employee at the airport was injured. The flight was heading to Honolulu. Everybody on board had to get off using stairs, and then they walked to the terminal so the plane could remain where it was for the investigation. Hawaiian Airlines put passengers on other flights to Honolulu.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Good evening, everybody. 7 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend. I'm your radio buddy, and I'm here until, until 7 o'clock when we hand things over to Mark Levin. So we're halfway through our program, 2 hours down, 2 to go, bringing you news and information on this 30th day of November. We're about to wrap this month up tomorrow. Friday, it'll be the end of the month. It'll be the end of the week. And then we start the trek down to Christmas Day. 25 shopping days left until Christmas. 25 shopping days, and it's like 47 days, I think it is, until the first voting takes place. Well, it's not voting; it's a caucus in Iowa, but that's on the horizon as well. We are in it, folks. There was a story that I found on Channel 17, Fox 17's website, that I thought was a really good conversation. And I'm going to open up the phone lines at 615-737-9986 to get your thoughts on all of this. The headline is, should pride flags be displayed in your child's classroom? That's the topic. If you have a strong opinion about it, get on the hotline right now, and we'll let you sound off on it. But it's apparently a debate that is taking place right now in Williamson County. So here's from the story. The pride flag has made its way into schools, and that has some parents and community members fired up. Some believe waving the flag is a sign of support for the LGBTQ plus community and is a political statement that does not belong in the classroom. Others say it's a freedom of speech issue that should be allowed so that people can express their opinions in a public building. Where a pride flag should be displayed has caused concerns across Middle Tennessee, and now it's causing a stir in Williamson County. Concerned citizen William Petty says, if schools allow pride flags to be hung up, what other flags will the schools allow? I think we need to have a policy, says Petty, because if we're going to allow that flag to fly in the classroom, what flags are we not going to allow? What if somebody wants to put a Hamas flag in there? What about a swastika? Would that be okay? Or how about a Confederate battle flag? Would that be okay? What are the limits? Where do you draw the line? Another concerned citizen says the pride flag brings comfort to some students who may not feel accepted because of people who shame the LGBTQ community. But here's where I start to really have trouble with this story, and it's the comment that is made by Williamson County Superintendent Dr. Jason Golden. He said it's important for teachers to be able to express themselves as long as they're not pushing their personal beliefs on the students. Well, if you're flying a pride flag and that's the way you want to express yourself in the classroom, aren't you sort of telling people what your personal beliefs are? Isn't that a way of pushing your personal beliefs? And here's the quote. We certainly want to make sure that anytime anyone has any suggestion that a professional teacher might be talking about their personal opinions, let us know. We will certainly investigate that. Also, and this is where I start to have a little problem with what he suggests, we want to make sure that we respect the teachers who do have that personal space as well and have some personal items related to that. So it's difficult to find the professional balance. Okay. Hold on a minute. I'm going to give you my opinion, then we'll take yours at 615-737-9986. Is this appropriate? Here's what I think. We ought to be doing in the classroom is teaching the curriculum, teaching kids the importance of how to write and how to read and how to do math and how to do science and about history and all of those kinds of things. And when we say, well, we need to give the teachers some personal space in the classroom, it's not their personal space. I think this is what happens a lot in government. People seem to think that, the schools belong to this person or that person. The schools belong to the taxpayers. We own those buildings. We do. The county doesn't exist except for the people. And the people who pay taxes, are supportive of these schools. And the reason there are schools, the schools belong to the people, not to the teachers and not to the superintendent and not to the administrators. And the job of a teacher is to teach, not to put your personal agenda out there for discussion. And I don't care. If you're gay, it doesn't bother me at all. You knock yourself out. You be you. But what difference does that make when you're trying to teach a kid how to write or how to do math or how to do science? I just don't think it's the right place. And I would say the same thing about any other kind of flag, except for maybe two exceptions, the American flag and the Tennessee flag. The 3 stars that represent the 3 divisions of Tennessee. That's great. Listen, that's fine. But the rest of it is you're pushing an agenda. You're pushing a point of view, and it's not your job to do that. It's your job to teach these students. So, I would say, look, Mr. Golden, with all due respect, let's have a little understanding that the teacher's job is not to come into the classroom and decorate it with their own personal stuff. It's the job of the teacher to teach the curriculum that has been approved in the classroom, and only that. It's not a place to do, a big social program and regardless of what your personal beliefs are, and I don't care. It's not your job to inflict that upon the job of the children. The job of that in a children's life should be the parents involved in that. And teaching them things of that nature. So remember, the classrooms don't belong to you. And ultimately, my bottom line on anything having to do with education is this. When you're talking about education, we ought to always look at any question like this through one lens, and that is in the interest of the children. The interest of the children. Not the teachers, not the administrators. It's what is best for the children. And I think it's best for the children to let those kind of discussions happen at home and to not try to bring that kind of stuff into the classroom. Well, what do you think? Phone lines, well, people are lined up to go. Let's go to Cole in Clarksville. Cole, you're on with Brian on the drive. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you have a different opinion? What's your thought, Cole?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Tennessee flag, American flag, nothing else has any business being in a classroom. These should not be indoctrination centers. Period.
Yeah, indoctrination is the word I was trying to find there. It's not about indoctrination, or it's not about making the teacher I'm gay and therefore I want everybody to know that I'm gay. Well, it doesn't matter what you are. What you are, first and foremost, is supposed to be a teacher. But I think in many, many places these are the kind of discussions that are being had. Colby in Spring Hill. Colby, you're on with Brian on the drive.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm fine. What do you think, Colby?
Here's what I think. I think that there's a separation of church and state already in schools, and there should be a separation of sex preferences in state as well. I think that, the only flags, like you said, should be hung is a United States flag, the state flag, and I will say a third flag should be if the school has a flag for a sports team at the school.
Sure, maybe. Yeah.
In regards to that, if we're not going to be able to fly the Christian flag or a Tennessee Titans flag, then we shouldn't be flying a gay pride flag. If that teacher wants to be represented and show, then put a bumper sticker on your car.
Yeah.
But you're not going to hang a flag and force my kids to accept your values and what I think is a lack of morals.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier that when I was in high school, I had a fantastic government teacher. In fact, I learned so much about government from that teacher, and I remember her name to this day, Mrs. Hirsch. And Mrs. Hirsch, she once said, we were in the middle of, I think, an election year that year, and she said, here's the thing. I want you to know that I have opinions about what's going on in the world, but you'll never be able to figure out what those opinions are. And that's the way it should be. You should be like the Swiss. You should be neutral in the classroom when it comes to politics. When it comes, sure, you could talk about world events. That's something that is going to happen in some classes at some point. But ultimately, when you walk in the door, your number one job, the thing you're being paid for, is not to indoctrinate the children, but to teach them the subject matter. That's your job. And if you have something that is a big cause for you, when the class rings at the end of the day, or the bell rings, you go out there and you do that, but it's on your time. All right? Just teach. I remember, we sometimes get irritated with our actors and actresses for taking on political, and I just want to say to them, I want you to entertain me. What's the thing they say to some singers? You shut up and sing, We don't care what you think about X, Y, and Z. And that's the way it ought to be in the classroom. You be you off when you're off work, but when you're in that classroom, it ought to be about one thing and one thing only, teaching the kids. Colby, thank you for the call. Mike, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Mike?
Man, you took every word that I was thinking of. You have already spoken it. I think that we do not need this in our school. We need to be teaching them history, writing, arithmetic, which, I mean, it's hard to do now. And it's a separate, like the other caller said, we've got a separation between state and religion. We need to have one with sexual gender and class.
All right, Mike, thank you. Brian and Laverne, you're up next on the drive. What do you think, Brian?
I think it's absolutely disgusting what they're doing in these schools, and I can guarantee you this. They want the pride flags in classes. I can guarantee what's not going to be next to those flags, and that would be a straight pride flag.
Yeah, no. And you know what? And I don't want that either. I mean, those conversations are not meant to be in the classroom, and sure. I mean, I don't have a problem if a teacher is gay. I don't. I have gay friends. I have people that are gay, and I don't have any problem at all with that. It's just, because I've got a little libertarian streak in me that says I'll be me and you be you. And, I want to know if you're a good person, if you're a person of quality, and I may not understand some of the choices you made in your life, but I don't need to understand. We can all get along. But there's no place for that in the classroom. We're not out here to indoctrinate or to bring some kind of social ideology into the classroom. Melissa in Hartsville, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Melissa?
How are you doing tonight, Brian?
I'm fine. What do you think?
Well, I have 3 school-age kids, and it's a slippery slope. You start allowing things like that to happen, then what's going to be next? What flag or what thing are they going to teach the children next that is inappropriate and not acceptable? It's scary. It's very concerning as a parent on what they are putting in the classroom and teaching our kids. And as parents, we need to step up and stand up for our children.
Yeah, I mean, I read the words of Dr. Jason Golden, and it sounds like he's trying to thread the needle here. He doesn't want to irritate the teachers. Well, I'm sorry. It's not your job, Mr. Administrator, Mr. Superintendent, to be the teacher's friend. It's your job to oversee the educational process in Williamson County. And you ought to be focused on making sure that test scores are where they need to be. I think Williamson County has pretty good schools from what I hear. But nonetheless, I just don't think that we should give a whit, not one whit, about what a personal, things that the teachers care about and their personal lives and the issues that they want to do in their personal lives. This is about a professional setting. I mean, it's well established within the law of this country that if you are in the workplace, then you don't have the rights to do as you wish. You work within the boundaries of the rules that are set for that workplace, or you go find yourself another job. That's the way it works in the real world, and it ought to work that way in the classroom as well. A lot of calls. I'm sorry I couldn't get to all of them. It's 21 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
A Covenant Manifesto release update, more hostages released as the ceasefire in Gaza continues, and a mysterious dog flu making its way to Tennessee. Those stories coming up 5:30. I'm Mac Maury on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right. It's time for a fan favorite. We call it Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports, or occasionally we call it the Wide World of Sports with Mac Maury. It's one or the other. Someday we'll settle on what the name of it is. But here is the host of your program. You know him, you love him. You can't live without him. It's Mac Maury, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yeah. The host of a nameless program.
Or a constantly shifting.
Yes, that's it. That's more appropriate. You're right.
Yeah, that's right.
Constantly rotating.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Mac, what's our topic for today?
Yeah, I've got two smaller topics that we can touch on if time pertains. I want to start with hockey because we don't really go over to the ice as much. And Preds are in season, and they right now boast the longest active win streak in the NHL.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. Started off the season maybe a little slow, a little rough, but 6 wins in a row, 5 of those coming right here at Bridgestone Arena. And they look to continue that here tonight, again, at Bridgestone against the Minnesota Wild. So we'll see how that goes. But right now, the Preds kind of slowly trying to climb up in the standings. They're 4 wins back from the Avalanche, who lead our Central Division. And they're 8 points back, which, if you don't know anything about hockey, points is really what matters. That's wins is kind of secondary. Yeah, the points is really where you want. So 22 points right now. Avalanche have 30. So looking to try and make up some of that. But you look at the Wild, they've got only 16 points. They're in our division, and they've got 6 wins, so 5 less wins. This is, on paper, a team that the Preds should be able to take care of. They're 5 wins better. They're 6 points better. They're at home. They're hot on a win streak. 7 wins in a row. Let's continue it right here.
I've always been very interested. I never was exposed to hockey until I got to Washington, D.C., because none of the places I'd lived before had hockey teams, and I just didn't follow. I love watching a good hockey game at the arena. I mean, that's a lot of fun.
So fun.
Mm-hmm. It really is fun. And by the way, the Preds do a great job. They put on a real good show.
For sure. Yeah.
And it's always an enjoyable experience. But I learning early on that if you start out slow, you think, well, the season's lost. No, there are a lot of games.
Oh, yeah. It's a long season.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can start out slow and still end up winning your division, and it's sort of fun to watch. And I'm glad that they're on a good win streak. I want the Preds to do well. It's fun because I want to get to the point where we can throw the catfish down.
Get the catfish.
That's right.
I like it.
Yeah, I've had a couple of lean years, so
yes,
time to get back on top again.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what has happened that all of a sudden they're hot?
That's a good question. I mean, this is a really young team, Brian, that's changed had a lot of moving pieces, especially latter half of this year or last year into the beginning of this year, trades, new acquisitions, just a lot of young guys. So I imagine, this is not my expertise, but I imagine it's just a lot of chemistry, getting used to each other, new players, new teams, young guys, new coach, new system. So just a lot of new things. And I mean, as you said, it's a long season. So it's okay to start a little bit slow. 21 games. Think about it. 21 games played. That's a quarter. They've got 75% of the season to go.
I know. It's a long season.
It's crazy.
What's the other topic you wanted to talk about?
Other story. This happened, I believe, either last night or today, but Deion Sanders was named Sports Illustrated Sportsperson of the Year for 2023. So, I didn't know that you could only win 4 games in a whole year and just win Sportsperson of the Year. No,
I mean, there was no doubt he was top of the heap for 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it was early in the season. I mean,
people were talking about that.
It was a no-brainer sort of thing. But boy, they lost the last 7 or something like that.
Yeah, lost their last 6 games. Multiple of them were blowouts, including Oregon was an absolute just trouncing. It was a clinic, but. Yeah, I mean, he did kind of put Colorado on the map. First-year applications are up 26.4% year over year.
Wow. Well, that is one of the things of having a good football program is that it brings attention to the university as, that's what they are all about, really.
And he's good at bringing attention.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Real quick, with our time, can I ask you about Aaron Rodgers?
Oh my gosh, this is incredible. Yeah, so he did an experimental surgery when he tore his Achilles earlier on in the season. We covered that right here on this segment. And It's only been a little over 2 months, and we've seen him now throwing around, and they just now have activated him for real football activity. They opened up that 21-day practice window. So he said, if he's feeling up for it and the Jets are in that playoff contention, which right now they're kind of just hanging in the hunt. We'll see if they can hang in there. They're going to need a win this weekend, but he could make history. I mean, he's 40 years old. He's a quarterback. He could come back. This is a year-long, at least, injury, recovery, rehab. It's been 2 months, and he's already looking like himself on the football field. It's crazy.
Wow.
Never seen anything like it.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see whether or not he can make it back on the field. 30 minutes now past the hour. Time to take off the sports hat, put back on the news hat, because it's news time on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.531, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 56 degrees in Nashville. Some rain on the way. We'll tell you about it. Full weather forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. A Covenant Manifesto update in Tennessee. News 2 reports that a 3-judge panel has ruled in favor of the Covenant parents to block the release of the shooter's writings. Now, multiple Tennessee, even national organizations have been vying for this document's release, while school parents have argued that there's confidential information contained in those writings, including school security information and personal information of students and employees. The court released their opinion today, ruling in favor of the Covenant families, which means that the case will go back before a Nashville judge who will decide what, if anything, is going to be released. And the Covenant families will be allowed to share their opinions with the judge before a final ruling. The Israel-Hamas conflict, 2 batches of Israeli hostages have now been released by Hamas today. Anastela Katera reports from Tel Aviv on the newest 6 of 8 who were freed.
They are now back on Israeli territory. They were handed over to the Red Cross, and they are now back in Israel. These 6 hostages, in addition to the 2 others that we saw released earlier in the night, which included, I think the biggest name here was Mia Shem, who's someone we talked a lot about because she was featured in one of those early videos that was released by Hamas, showing her with a broken arm.
And Israel released 30 prisoners, all women and minors. Right now in Tennessee, a veterinarian in Kingsport says he believes a mysterious dog flu in at least 14 states has now made its way to Tennessee. Cherry Point Animal Hospital owner and vet Andy Cherry tells Channel 11 there in Johnson City that tests on dogs coming in with symptoms are not positive for any known illnesses.
There's been cases of deaths in this area. It's just, I don't know what they're using for reporting system in that. But there's been cases referred to UT by multiple of my colleagues in this area already.
And Cherry said the illness has been prominent in dogs coming from boarding facilities, pet daycares, and dog parks. That is the latest news. Weather and traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
38 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Brian Wilson on the air, in the chair, bringing you news and information. And we're glad you're with us. And thank you so much for finding merit in what we do. We don't want to ever take our listeners for granted. And we just want you to know that we do appreciate the fact that you listen to this program. And in this season of the holidays, I just don't want to miss the opportunity to say thank you. Thank you. It means a lot. Elon Musk. I don't know what to think about Elon Musk. First of all, I think he's brilliant. And I think, he, by the way, it's not a well-known, he has talked about it. That's no secret, but I don't think people consider the fact that Elon Musk is somewhere on the autism spectrum. He admits this. He's on the spectrum somewhere. He's a high-functioning autistic, if he is, but he's not wired like the rest of us. I've always looked at people, and coming from Texas and spending most of my life in the South, I think that we in this part of the world, we sort of look at our eccentrics and we embrace them. I don't know why, but we sort of embrace and we sort of cherish those people who do things differently and are wired a little differently. And Elon is definitely that. He's wired a little different than you and I. I've always heard it said, and I think it's true, that the distance between being completely brilliant and completely insane is a very thin line between the two. And so, when you see these people who emerge on the scene from time to time, I think Elon Musk is one of the most innovative people of our time when it comes to developing new technologies. I mean, this man builds rockets. He's going to go to Mars, and he will. He builds electric cars. He thinks outside the box, and then he goes out and buys Twitter and changes it to call it X. And it seems like he's gotten himself in a little trouble from time to time because he's the kind of guy who says exactly what's on his mind, and maybe sometimes that internal little voice that says maybe you shouldn't say this just doesn't seem to operate. We have people like that in our lives who just they don't have that internal monitor or that internal censor that says this is what I think, but I can't say that. Well, Elon Musk says what's on his mind, and it gets him in trouble from time to time. And he admits that he said some things that he wish he hadn't said with regard to Israel. He said it was a mistake to have said it. One of the biggest mistakes he said he's made. But then when all of a sudden the people on the left who don't like Elon Musk, because he does trend conservative in a lot of his ideas, decided that they were going to try to get advertisers to pull away and not support X anymore. Well, he got a little angry. And I don't know if you've heard this or not. If there are tender ears, I've done the best I can to bleep this, but it's hard to get to not walk away with exactly what he was meaning to say when he said it in an interview.
And you're clarifying this now, but there's a public perception that was part of a apology tour, if you will. That this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f*** yourself.
But
go f*** yourself.
In case you missed it the first time.
I hope it is.
Well, I mean, and that, of course, now has gotten him in a little trouble because, he's got this thing that needs advertiser support. And he's basically said, if you don't agree with what I'm saying and you want to try to blackmail me, I'll just say, I don't need you. Okay, well, that may be when you're a gazillionaire, I suppose, and he can keep X afloat for a lot of years. But, if it doesn't make money. But I think he wants it to be a profitable business. And I think, given a little time and somebody to pull him aside and have a conversation with him and bring a little reason into his thinking, he might change his opinion about that. He's got a CEO who now runs X, and she's sort of backpedaling a little bit, but not too much, really. Hard to do that when you work for Elon Musk. They say Elon Musk, when you're in the room with him, I mean, it can be a brutal and extremely difficult sort of position to be in, because he just comes at you with, he burrows in on the weakness of whatever it is that you're bringing him in an amazing way. It's just a gift that he has. He can immediately detect what's weak about the thing, where the BS is, and he'll just come right at you. And they say people often leave the room crying when Elon gets through with them. So he's that kind of guy. I just would also say, though, throughout history in America, we've had these people who are complete innovators, but they aren't necessarily really nice people. I mean, maybe they had, good PR machines and people didn't report on people the way they do now. But I mean, Edison wasn't a particularly nice guy. I think you look at people like Tesla was completely weird, but brilliant in so many other ways. You got who else comes to mind? Henry Ford. I mean, Henry Ford was not a very nice man by all accounts. I mean, you can go on and on and on. A lot of these people, had brilliant ideas, and they were innovators, but they were, as Elon is, wired a little differently than you and I. So it's interesting that Elon now is making no bones about it. I mean, it's like there was no doubt in that soundbite exactly what he meant, because he said it twice in case you missed it the first time. So that is going on right now with Elon Musk. He's also, by the way, it comes at the time that the Cybertruck, the long-awaited Cybertruck, the ugliest vehicle ever designed by mankind, but apparently an amazing vehicle in so many ways, is about to be released, or it is being released as we speak. The big question now for those who've endured the wait, how much will it cost and how far can it travel on a single battery charge? On Thursday, Chief Executive Elon Musk is expected to provide more specifics on the trucks during an event at the company's Austin area plant. I think actually I saw something about that after that event. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick, because I think that has happened and there's been some reporting on what he said. Yeah, here it is. Elon Musk hypes Tesla's Cybertruck at delivery event in Austin. This is from CNBC. He took the stage to reveal details about the company's new and unconventional Cybertruck pickup in Austin one day after he appeared at that book deal summit where he had that interview that we just played a bite from. It will be the biggest product launch of anything by far on Earth this year. In dimly lit event space at the company's headquarters, Elon hyped up the fans in attendance, saying what we have here is as a better truck than a truck, while also being a better sports car than a sports car in the same package. He said the Cybertruck's hard steel body was bulletproof, and they actually, I've seen video where they fire like a machine gun at it, and the bullets bounce off. It is, the windows are rock-proof. It could tow over 11,000 pounds, and it's a massive thing, but apparently it can accelerate from 0 to 60. You ready for this, Chris? 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds.
Good grief.
I mean, my Lord. It has a super tough composite bed that is 6 feet long and 4 feet wide. The vehicle would change the look of the roads, he said. Future finally looks like the future. Tesla CEO did not directly mention the pricing and battery range. Tesla's website would reveal that the rear-wheel drive base model for the Cybertruck is now priced some 50% higher than the 40% the company originally aimed for before tax breaks and other incentives. He presented several production Cybertrucks to beaming customers who drove away in them. Oh, they're out there. They're on the road. According to the website, the company will sell its base model rear-wheel drive version of the Cybertruck for $60,990 and a Cyber Beast version for, well, basically $100,000. Tesla also plans to sell an all-wheel drive version of the Cybertruck for $79,900 starting in 2025. Wow. Base rear model, 250-mile range. And the base model, 250-mile range, accelerate from 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. The all-wheel drive Cybertruck expect to have a range of 340 miles an hour and go from 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds. That's still incredibly fast, with a top speed of 112 miles an hour. And the Cyber Beast would have a range of 320 miles and an estimated top speed of 130 miles per hour. Where are you going to use 130 miles an hour? I-40 outside of no.
Just call it a Thursday.
You just call it a Thursday on I-40. They're taking $100 refundable reservations. So you got Ford with a pickup. You got General Motors and Rivian beginning to sell more utilitarian electric pickup trucks. I was just driving down the road, and I got a gander at one of the Amazon Rivian electric trucks.
Yeah, I've seen several of those.
Yeah, I've seen them. They're on the road as well. But anyway, again, Elon Musk, interesting cat. It comes at a time, though, when EVs, I mean, we've been talking about this, are not selling the way everybody thought they would. And a lot of the major automakers are now saying, you know what, we're going to have to pare back on our electric plans because there just isn't demand for it. Right now, out on the dealers' lots, you can get an electric car. You might get a pretty good deal on it because they're not moving. The people who wanted them got them early. The early adopters got them, and then everybody else said, I think I'll just stick with my gas truck. That's where I'm at on it. And it used to be you had an advantage, that you got a break on things like gas taxes if you don't have to put gas in it. But states, and that's how states pay to maintain the roads, and they've come up with ways now to actually tax the drivers of electric vehicles, so that advantage is gone. It says, critics say it unfairly punishes climate-conscious drivers. Well, they're still driving on roads, and even though you're not, buying gas, you should pay for, your use of the road, I would say. The rest of us shouldn't have to carry your load because state fuel taxes make up, on average, 38% of most states' transportation budget, so they got to recoup that money somehow. 50 minutes now past the hour, 5 o'clock on Super Talk. We have big news from DT McCall's. If you've been thinking of buying a gun safe but putting it off, now, my friend, is the time, just in time for Christmas. Gun safes are sales tax free. I said sales tax free. So in the middle of hunting season, you need to make sure that you're keeping your gun safe when you're not in the tree stand with a gun safe from DT McCall's. DT McCall's is the largest Liberty Safe dealer in Tennessee, and the reason is free delivery and setup. Others charge $500 at least for delivery and setup of the big models, and $300 for the smaller models. DT McCall & Sons delivers every safe free, every time, period. Never a setup charge. Security is important these days, and gun safes can be used for things other than guns. Valuables, cash, mama's jewelry, important documents, wills, deeds, car titles, whatever you need to keep safe from theft or fire. So save some big bucks now on your gun safe when you shop at your local DT McCall's. Go to dtmccalls.com for locations and information.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
Let me tell you about the folks over at Nashville Gold and Coin. Good people, and we help you talk about gold, learn about gold. Gold has been used as money for millennia. It's a tried and true store of value and consistent across generations. They say that generational wealth has three components: land, art, and precious metals. Land and art can be hard to evaluate, but precious metals like gold, platinum, and silver are practical solutions, things you can actually hold in your hand that have value. Inflation is currently decreasing the value of your money, and gold and silver can be a safe haven during uncertain economic times. You can learn all about the importance of owning precious metals by going to Nashville Gold and Coin. Maybe you have some gold that was given to you. You're not sure what it's worth, or you're just curious about learning more about precious metals. Well, this is the place to go. They are always available to discuss your options and educate you on the precious metals market. So do what I did. Go to Nashville's real money source, Nashville Gold and Coin. And by the way, if you have some old coins laying around that you think they might have some value, then why don't you just bring them in? I'll bring them along for your one-on-one appointment. They'll tell you what they're worth. I found out mine were worth a lot. NashvilleGoldandCoin.com is where you set up that one-on-one appointment. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Six o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 53 degrees, expecting some showers later on this evening. We'll tell you how long those could be around in a full forecast. Latest traffic report upcoming in 5 minutes. Covenant Manifesto update in Tennessee. News 2 says that a 3-judge panel has ruled in favor of the Covenant parents to block the release of the shooter's writings. Multiple Tennessee and national organizations have been vying for the document's release, while school parents have argued that there is confidential information contained within them, including school security information and personal information of students and employees. The court released its opinion today, and they ruled in favor, meaning that that case will go back before a Nashville judge who will decide what, if anything, is released. The Covenant families will be allowed to share their opinions with the judge before a final ruling. Israel, Hamas, 8 Israeli hostages have now been released by Hamas today. For their part, Israel released from prison 30 Palestinian women and minors. The extended temporary ceasefire seems to be working. Here's Mick Mulroy.
The fact that this is working, as difficult as it is an indicator that this might be the mechanism that when both sides are ready to stop the fighting, which obviously is primarily Israel, that this could be used to have a permanent ceasefire.
And there was an attack at an Israel bus station today from Hamas. It killed 3 people. It did not affect that ceasefire, however, because it did not happen in Gaza. Right now in Tennessee, a veterinarian in East Tennessee believes a mysterious respiratory illness affecting dogs has moved into the volunteer state. Kingsport veterinarian Andy Cherry tells Channel 11 in Johnson City when dogs come in with symptoms, they're not testing positive with any known illness.
We've done multiple respiratory panels looking for the common causes of respiratory viruses or respiratory infections, and we have not come up with any determined diagnosis for that. So what we can basically test for, we're not coming up with a positive for.
Cherry said the illness has been prominent in dogs coming from boarding facilities, pet daycares, and dog parks. Some money news. A new bank rate survey shows most Americans are not feeling the difference with inflation cooling down. About 60% of working Americans said their income, even if it increased, has lagged behind inflation over the past year. That is up from 55% since 2021. The price of everyday items has risen almost 17%, while wage growth has been almost 13%. And a big change to a long-running comic strip. Here's Chuck Sievertson.
In the panels of Mutz, a popular comic strip, Patrick McDonald, the cartoonist, has freed his character Guard Dog. The animal's mission for decades was to remind humans that it's cruel to perpetually chain a dog. Guard Dog longed to be unchained. McDonald tells the Associated Press it has to happen. Fans would regularly plead with McDonald to free the mutt, but the artist was also lobbied by animal welfare groups to keep him chained as a way to increase the spotlight on the issue.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next, also traffic. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It is 7 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. I'm Brian Wilson, and you're listening to The Drive. Good evening, everyone. Let's get right into it. We have a little bit of news that has crossed our desk here in the last few minutes, and it has to do with something we've talked about a great deal on this program, the manifesto from the Covenant shooter, and whether or not it should be made public. As you know, there's a big lawsuit going on here. I mean, there are so many lawyers involved in this thing. Somebody once calculated, what the hourly rate was anytime this case was being heard in a court of law. I mean, we probably have 30 lawyers or more involved representing different people and different viewpoints about whether or not this manifesto should be released. I've taken the position because I believe, as the governor believes and as other state leaders believe, this should be released because we have a public interest in knowing a little bit more about what was motivation behind all this. And normally in a FOIA case, this is a FOIA Freedom of Information Act case, it would be sort of a slam dunk. It appeared to me in the early going. Because this is not one of the things police can do when they say we're not going to release it is if they have an ongoing case. Well, there's nobody who's ever going to be prosecuted because, as you know, the shooter is dead. And it's sad that we had a loss of life, and it's sad that this person carried it out. But the state legislature was at some point, called into session to try to figure out how we might prevent something like this from happening, which is a little hard to do when you don't know what the motivation was. We don't know the background of the case. There's so much to be learned. 3 pages have been leaked, but there are probably hundreds of pages that have been written. And so will that information ever make its way into the public domain? A ruling this afternoon, which makes it look like it's going to be increasingly difficult to have that happen. From WKRN, I think everybody's got a version of this story. The Tennessee Court of Appeals has ruled in favor of Covenant parents in the lawsuit to block the release of documents related to the March 27th shooting. The Covenant families have fought for months to have a say in what's released, particularly regarding the shooter's so-called manifesto. I think, by the way, we should just say the shooter's writings, because the shooter had a notebook that was found in the car at the scene, but there are many, many notebooks that were found at home, writings that go back many, many years. While several groups tried to block them from having input, some of those seeking to release the documents include a state senator, as well as a statewide firearms lobbying organization, the Tennessee Star, and a local newspaper. Meanwhile, the court has said both the Covenant School and the Covenant Church, as well as parents of Covenant School students, filed a motion to intervene in the release of the documents. Okay, so the requests were made by news organizations and others who wanted to know more about the motivation, wanted to learn more about the actual shooting. And then in an unusual move, it doesn't normally happen in FOIA cases like this, the Covenant families, the church, and the school all asked to get involved in the lawsuit. So this latest legal question is about whether or not they have the right and standing to be involved in the case. That's all that this lawsuit was about. They believe they did, and there were a number of the people who said no, they don't. And it went to a 3-judge panel, and the 3-judge panel has now said yes, the families, the parents, the school, they all have a right to be involved. Those who sought the release of the documents included Clayton Renee Brewer in conjunction with the National Police Association, had appealed the initial ruling by the Nashville court, said there was an error in granting Covenant parents' motion, but the court released its opinion late today, ruling in favor of the Covenant families, meaning the case will now go back to the Nashville judge, who will decide what, if anything, can be released, because now it has been determined by the 3-judge panel that the families and others have standing. We affirm the trial court's judgment allowing intervention, the opinion reads. We remand this matter to the trial court for further proceedings. The Covenant families now will be allowed to share their opinions with the judge before a final ruling. What will that final ruling be? Well, it's still up in the air, but it's not going to be released anytime soon, if it's going to be released at all. I understand. I do have compassion. I truly do for the parents and the school, but I cannot be somebody who believes in the craft of journalism and the craft of the First and the importance of the First Amendment to be able to publish the information. I don't think everything needs to be published. I quite frankly think there should be some limits on things that should be. I mean, for example, we know from some of the early reporting on this that the shooter apparently planned attacks on other potential targets. And does that information need to be released? We know what some of them are, but I mean, the exact plans, no. If there's information in there that would provide a roadmap to somebody else to carry out such attacks, I think maybe that there's a valid case to be made that perhaps that should be kept away from the public venues. It shouldn't be publicly released. But where I think we do have a compelling public interest is what was the motivation that led this shooter to do it. I mean, one thing that I said on the first day, way back on the day that the shooting took place, within hours, I said, when we learned, I'll remember it clear as a bell, when we learned that the shooter was a woman, I said, that's incredibly unusual. That doesn't happen very often. And then we found out that the woman was going through some kind of gender issue where sometimes the shooter wanted to be identified as Aiden, and then other times they wanted to go by the female name. And so, it was very much something going on with that individual. And we are told that the individual was going through some kind of therapy. It's not been made clear whether that was psychological therapy or whether that was medical therapy. What does that mean? So for us to have an understanding of what was driving this and what was going on behind it, it seems to me there is a public and overriding public interest in seeing some of that information be made public. It would have, in most cases, already been made public. I mean, the FBI often releases manifestos or writings within days of shootings when there's not going to be a trial. But they haven't done it this time. And it seems that there's something about this individual being a woman who was transitioning or trying to transition into and wanted to be considered a man, some kind of transgender issue involved in this that makes it very different, and we need to have an understanding of that. I think, when we look back at some of the other things that have happened, we learned a lot about what was the real motivation. For example, remember the Waffle House shooting. The man who carried that out, it was a bona fide nut job. And by looking at the writings, we were able to learn that. We also learned a lot about how that individual got the weapons that allowed him to carry out that attack. And there were other lawsuits that filed after that. So I really do think that there is an overriding public interest. The governor has said he thinks there needs to be transparency on the issue. I agree with the governor on that. And I think if there's going to be any effort to try to pass laws, you can't ask the state legislature to pass laws that might have an impact on something like this unless there's a complete understanding of how it happened. But again, I understand it's painful. These things always are. But I think the public ultimately has a right to know. And you may disagree. Reasonable people, honestly, can have different opinions about this. So goes back to the original trial judge, who will then decide whether, any of this can be released or under what. Apparently, the trial judge has redacted versions or even the original versions. And as I said, 3 pages have already been released that reveal some, but not all, of what was going on with this particular individual. But a major ruling today from a 3-court panel, bottom line, they say on the specific question of whether or not the families have a right to intervene in this case, they believe that the families do have that right, and it goes back to the Chancery Court for further consideration. We'll be on top of this story, of course, every step of the way. Quickly, let me see if there's anything else I can squeeze in here. that I need to talk about with regard to other stories while we were trying to adjust to the breaking news element of the day. Yeah, here it is. Jonathan Turley is a thoughtful legal scholar, and he wrote an interesting piece for RedState.com. And well, actually, this is an assessment of his writings and his opinions by RedState.com. And it has to do with this idea that Hunter Biden wants to have an open session in which he answers questions but doesn't want to go in for a deposition. Jonathan Turley says Hunter is finally going to have to answer up or face possible new charges. George Washington Law School professor Jonathan Turley says now with a subpoena, Hunter will finally have to answer up or face some real consequences, and the delay may very well hurt him. The irony is the delay in bringing Hunter to this moment could prove his undoing. The committee had waited until it collected a massive amount of data and records on these financial records. It has interviewed witnesses on the influence peddling operation. Hunter must now address highly specific questions and evidence under oath in a deposition. If he is found to have lied, he can be charged with criminal felony. See, that's what they're trying to avoid. They don't want him to get in there and say something that turns out to be inaccurate, to have lied under oath, and then he could be charged with a criminal felony. And so what they want to do is they want to go into a hearing where you're not going to be able to ask near as many questions. You're not going to get near as specific, and the Democrats are going to try to turn it into a dog and pony show. But Hunter says, Turley says that the threat to Hunter Biden, the statements from his lawyer about being a private person is hilarious. His whole business was using the family name. A congressional subpoena is not like an invitation to a debutante ball, he explained. You have to show up. He noted how the Garland Department of Justice has been very aggressive about going after people for contempt, so they would face questions if they didn't pursue Hunter if he failed to appear. Hunter had spent years in denial and delay, but now is going to have to answer some very specific questions based on the evidence that the committee has accumulated, which is considerable, ladies and gentlemen. Hunter Biden wants to do Hunter Biden thinks he's special. Aren't you special, Hunter Biden? I mean, everybody else who gets subpoenaed before this committee has to go through the deposition process, ask specific questions. But no. And part of the problem with Hunter Biden is that he's been given special preferential treatment all his life, every step of the way. And then he doesn't seem to want to take any responsibility for the decisions that he's made. Nobody put a gun to his head and said, take those drugs, Hunter Biden. And he said, well, I was under the influence and, I had a drug addiction problem. So there are a lot of people who commit crimes while they're under the influence of drugs. That doesn't mean that they didn't commit the crimes. But, Hunter Biden thinks he's special. And I hope that the committee is able to disabuse him of that notion. It is 21 minutes now, past the hour of 6 o'clock. Listen, as a person who has a dog and a by the way, an adorable, cute little baby puppy named Solo. Solo is so cute. Except at 2:00 in the morning when you're doing the 2 a.m. feeding. And you have to help the little puppies, because they need a little help, and you can't leave the mother and the puppy together because accidentally the mother could roll over on the little tiny puppies, and so you have to sort of keep them sadly separated, and so you have to help them find where the milk is.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, right, and then when you get done and you pick them up, they pee and poop all over you. It's 2:00 in the morning.
What goes in's got to come out.
Oh, Solo, really, honestly. But anyway, I'm very concerned about this story about this mysterious dog disease. And if you're a dog lover, pay attention. 17 states are seeing a mysterious illness infecting dogs. It has apparently moved into eastern Tennessee, according to a veterinarian in Kingsport at the Cherry Point Animal Hospital. The illness affects the respiratory system, and it's been proven to be deadly to canines and can spread easily. Anytime you get dogs together and share an airspace, you're going to have respiratory disease. We are constantly on alert for it at the shelter, and there are things that seem to be responding as normally to our treatment protocols, but some have been really difficult to cure. The virus, according to this story from WSMV, is believed to be a strand of a sickness that is commonly referred to as kennel cough, but has proven to be much more serious for dogs that have to deal with it. What we're seeing with the novel disease is animals that tend to be sicker and may not be responding as quickly to the medicines we've been giving, maybe just taking longer to get better. Some have had to go under oxygen and get pneumonia. And there have been in some states, dogs have been lost. So what they're recommending is if you put your dogs in a situation like going to a dog park or into a kennel or into a day play sort of situation, a lot of people drop their dogs off and then they play all day with other dogs. You may be really putting your dog at risk as this stuff starts to take over. So they're saying keep your dog isolated from other dogs as much as possible, and because that's where apparently it transfers. And so that's going to be hard for some people as they get ready to take trips for the holidays, etc. But it can stick. The cough can stick around for weeks. And I want to just point out that there's been no official confirmation of cases in Tennessee, but there have been 17 states where it has been confirmed, and we're now beginning to hear the stories that something is going on that they can't quite identify, and dogs are getting sick in the state of Tennessee, at least out in East Tennessee right now. So you've been well advised what to do about your pups. It's been prominent in dogs coming from boarding facilities, pet daycares, and dog parks. And when dogs come into the animal hospital with symptoms, they are not testing positive for any known illnesses. We've done multiple respiratory panels looking for the common causes of the virus or the respiratory infections. I hear the same kind of thing about people, actually, lately. I mean, there's some kind of thing going around, and sometimes I saw a thing that Cheryl Atkinson did where she said a lot of doctors are treating people for COVID, but there's one doctor, a few doctors out there who believe that something is showing up that's not COVID. And it's pretty rough stuff. I went down to see my sister in Birmingham, and she had it, whatever it is, and it's a rough cough. So I mean, I don't know what it is, but she had it, and I was like, "Hi, sis, stay right over there on the other side of the room. Here, would you mind putting on this mask? And I'll sit here and keep my distance." And thank goodness, I mean, her husband got it, but I didn't pick it up, and I'm very happy for that. But she says it's pretty rough. So
has she been frequenting any dog parks?
No, not at all. But I mean, there's something going on, and with dogs, and I think maybe with people. And there've been the reports. I don't want to get people panicked because sometimes these reports turn out to be wrong. But there have been some reports that maybe there's another virus coming out of China. I don't think I want to get too deep into that until we get more information. But, it's that time of year. You can get the flu, too, The flu can kill you just as easy as anything else, just a plain old common flu. Right now, 30 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You know, Grace Point delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing. The idea here is an unusual concept in the medicine world. You'll actually know how much it costs before the care is delivered. Best known for their smart care plans, for just $69 a month, you get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. There's a lot packed into that sentence. Unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the whole family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. Now, here's the idea. You take your high deductible insurance plan that you may have, and you marry it with a smart care plan, and you could have a 1-2 punch that would save you and your family a lot of money. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms, and they treat naturally whenever possible. It is also a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. They have COVID testing and treatment. Grace Point Healthcare on Main Street in Franklin. Call this number to set up your appointment. That's 599-6868 to schedule a visit. .638 on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson here for the last 22 minutes of the program for this Thursday. We have a lot to think about. And by the way, just want to remind you, make plans to be with us on December 7th from 4 to 8 p.m. at Scoreboard at Cedar Creek Marina. We're going to be having a big Super Talk 99 live event. And Dan Mandis will be there. Chris Hand will be there. Matt Murphy will be there. And I, your friend and radio buddy, will be there. As we broadcast live. And, you know, I know that many of you have asked, and I appreciate that you're asking, because it seems too good to be true, really, honestly, but it's free.
What's the catch?
There's no catch. It's free. You show up and order some food, and we're going to be hanging around, doing live radio from 4 till 8. An extra added bonus hour of the drive that day.
I think all the hosts should be required to show up in their ugliest Christmas sweater.
I have no ugly Christmas sweater.
Well, you better get one.
No, I know. I tried to get one for the party that's we're having a little party, and I was told that I was not allowed to do that.
Well, maybe this will be your chance.
Well, it's free. Just show up at the Cedar Creek Marina, but you can get details at 997WTN.com. And we'll see you there. I hope it's in Mount Juliet. We haven't done an event in Mount Juliet in a while. I think one of the first events I did when I came here was in Mount Juliet. We had a really good turnout. So I'm expecting we're going to have a bunch of folks from Wilson County and the surrounding environs showing up for our thing. we talk about COVID, and I mean, we're talking about the dog thing, and there may be something else out there. I don't know if it's affecting humans. It's a little early to know. But we should never forget the lessons of COVID-19. We know that it was a disaster to keep kids at home, and kids lost a lot of educational knowledge, and we have a whole generation of kids who are way behind educationally because they closed the schools and kept people at home, and they tried to do remote learning, and it was a disaster. And so we are now suffering the results of that. We know that it took a lot of businesses out, and it made it difficult for people to make a living, and a whole bunch of stuff that was going on that we have now looked back on. And we say, man, that was a disaster. I wish we hadn't done that. I think if we have another round of something like COVID, that we probably will look at it a bit differently. But here's this from theblaze.com. Damning studies suggest pandemic lockdowns accelerated significant memory and cognitive decline in seniors. Maybe this explains what happened to Joe Biden. The lockdowns and societal restrictions championed by teachers' unions and other leftists during the pandemic were not just ruinous for the mental health of children and teens. A new study out of the UK indicates pandemic restrictions had a deleterious impact. Well, that's three big words in a row. Of the minds of the elderly. It had a bad impact. Dr. Ann Corbett from the University of Exeter Medical School and her team examined neuropsychology data from 3,000 and change individuals, all 50 years of age or over, who had been participating in a multi-decade dementia study in Britain. They were already studying to see how many of these people came up with some level of dementia. The researchers compared data on this cohort collected before the pandemic, early in the pandemic, and then once more toward the tail end of the pandemic. The researchers observed significant worsening of executive function and working memory in the first year of the pandemic across the entire cohort, the average age of which was 67.5. Working memory continued to worsen across the cohort in the second year of the pandemic. By the time restrictions had ultimately been eased, the damage had been done. According to the study, cognitive decline was significantly associated with reduced exercise and increased drinking across the entire cohort. Yes, we sat around because we were inside, we couldn't go out and exercise, and we were sitting around with nothing to do, so we drank more. Depression, another driving factor of cognitive decline, was notable among those who contracted COVID-19. Loneliness proved especially detrimental to those with mild cognitive impairment. There was no stimulation. Without stimulation, if you don't stimulate your brain will die. People aged 50 years and older in the UK had accelerated decline in executive function and working memory during the first year of the COVID pandemic, during which the UK was subjected to 3 societal lockdowns for a period of 6 months, and the study published in the Lancet Journal Health Longevity. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I think, honestly, I think we learned our. I will give our governor pretty high marks, although initially we did some things that. Because in the early going of COVID-19, and by the way, people died. I mean, I would still be on mornings doing the morning show had it not been for the loss of Phil Valentine, who was a victim of COVID-19. So, it's not lost on me that COVID-19 took a lot of lives, but we shut down everything to the point where businesses went out of business. And kids got way behind in school, and people lost their jobs because businesses couldn't function. It was just a disaster. But the governor pretty much figured it out pretty soon, I think, and eased up on that stuff a lot quicker than, let's say, Mayor Munchkin did. Mayor Munchkin kept us shut down forever until I think he figured out it was hurting his ratings. People were upset with him. And then he changed his mind all of it. It's like one day he just woke up and said, it's okay now. We can all come out of hiding. We can all go back to doing the things we were doing before. So anyway, there's another study showing that, we should not do what we did last time. Do we need to be careful if we have another pandemic? Yes. Do we need to make sure that, that we are taking reasonable precautions? Yes. Do we need to shut everything down? Like we did before? No, we don't. From the Washington Examiner, explosion of concealed handguns means that somebody near you is carrying. Paul Bedard writes, the tripling of people with concealed gun permits combined with the majority of states that no longer license owners who want to carry means that someone near you is likely packing heat. It's very likely that any place that allows people to carry a concealed handgun will have someone carrying their gun, said a new report shared with this column done by Paul Bedard called Secrets. Comes from John R. Lott's Crime Prevention Research Center. Lott has long followed the explosion in government-issued concealed carry permits. 74-page report said that the percentage of people carrying guns rose from 5.4% in 2017 to 15.6% today. So it nearly tripled. There are 3 times as many people packing heat right now because of, well, Supreme Court decisions and the fact that many states have sort of said, nope, Second Amendment is the Second Amendment, and following on the heels of Supreme Court decisions, they have loosened restrictions so that you don't even have to have a concealed carry permit if you want to carry your pistol or your weapon. Lott says the leveling off of permits is likely due to the surge in states that now allow citizens to carry handguns without a permit. The growth of the so-called constitutional carry states that reached 27 is the biggest story in the gun world. In other words, people in those 27 states are allowed to carry concealed handguns without permits, representing 65% of the land in the country, 44% of the population in 2022. It's clear that more people are legally carrying their weapons. What does that mean in practice? It means that most places where people are allowed to carry a concealed handgun, there will be someone carrying a concealed handgun. The probability that any one person has a concealed handgun permit is 5.4% in a room of 10 people. I'm sorry, if any one person, the chances it's 5.4%. In a room with 10 people, the probability that one person will have a permitted concealed handgun is 43%. Wow. Makes me feel a little safer. And when you get in a room of 20 people, that goes up to there's a 67% chance somebody's packing heat. With 40 people in a room, the probability rises to 89%. So there, if you get into any kind of crowd of people, there's a chance that there's something. And I'm okay with that. A lot more people carry than carry, and I feel that we are safer because of that. And from FoxNews.com, Democrats have long claimed that red states are more dangerous than blue states. Why? Because, they say there are more guns. Republican senator and the Yale School of Public Health dean recently sparred on gun crime, and one expert told Fox News Digital it was an example of how the left frames data in a way that's misleading, makes it seem like Republican-controlled areas are most plagued by crime. Why do you think that Chicago has become America's largest outdoor shooting range? Louisiana Senator John Kennedy asked Dr. Megan Rainey of the Yale School of Public Health at a hearing Monday. Rainey responded by comparing Chicago to 3 red states and claiming Mississippi, Louisiana, and Missouri actually have higher firearm death rates. What about Chicago? Kennedy asked. I think there's easy access to firearms combined with environmental conditions, lack of great education. There have been studies that when you green vacant lots and repair abandoned buildings in urban neighborhoods, you see decreases in gunshots and violence. Well, no disrespect, Doctor, that sounds like a lot of word salad to me, Kennedy responded. The exchange generated backlash on social media from conservatives who pointed out that gun homicide rate in Chicago is much higher than those in the states per 100,000 people. Additionally, some took issue with Rainey's seemingly random selection of 3 red states while pointing out crime statistics are most useful at the local level where crime is handled. Something else that the left will do when it comes to gun deaths. They will say, well, there were all of these gun deaths related to gun. That people died because people had guns. And what they often include in those numbers, and they don't really say this, is that they also, when they cite their statistics, they include suicides. Now, I don't know about you, but my belief is that if somebody did not have a gun and they really wanted to commit suicide, they would find another way. I don't think it's fair to say that, you should include that in something that it has to do with homicide rates. That's a very different thing. It's 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call, or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.